Okay, hello.
At
Yeah, we are at part 7 of this epic adventure through film and through history and time. We're like almost done with this, if you can believe it. If you believe in miracles, this is it. It's happening.
do you believe in magic?
Yeah, we are gonna do another 10 films on our list. And as we said before, like this is just how we feel right now about film in this crazy time, the year of our Lord 2020,
Yeah.
where we're all kind of stuck inside, and there's a global pandemic, but we're still trying to do what we love, talk about film.
Yeah. Just talk about movies. Talk about our favorite movies and emphasis on our favorite movies. This is not a definitive, we say this every week, but it's not a definitive top 100 countdown of the best movies ever. Certainly my list isn't. It's just movies that I'm really passionate about, that I really like. And I always try to argue like the kind of context behind it and like why I feel a certain way. And we talk about, we talk about stories about like when we first saw the films and stuff and how they affected us and why they're placed where they're placed. So it's more of just a back and forth discussion. We're just kind of hanging out, shooting the shit, talking about our favorite movies.
Yeah, totally. And if you've stuck with us this far, you've heard us talk about a lot of really cool stuff. And this is it. This is kind of do or die time.
Yeah, dude.
This is where we get into like the really, really, really seriously good stuff.
Yeah, I was telling him right before we started recording that every single top 10 from here on out could be its own top 10. Like it could be the top 10 as far as I'm concerned. I feel so strongly about all these movies and I'm so passionate about them. So it was just impossible to rank them, but we ranked them anyways. So that's the exercise. Yeah. We'll get into it.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I guess so. So I'll start off for this segment. So my number 40 is Grand Illusion by Jean Renoir from 1937. So this is pretty much it's an anti-war film. It was sort of the story is about World War I, and so it's this group of French soldiers and they are sort of captured in this World War I German prison camp, and then they're transferred to a high security fortress, and then they have an escape plan that they have to keep from this German officer. What the story really thematically is about is like how we do all these things to like make other people seem like they're different from us, but they're really not. Like the things that make human beings, I guess, sort of the same or relatable, or like the things we have in common are more important than the things we don't have, and how these things like, oh, you're French and you're German, so I have to hate you.
Right.
That just he just really sort of did something to attack that with this film. But at the same time, he kind of shows that human beings aren't totally there yet, being able to really understand that these boundaries, these borders, these things don't really matter. And so, we sort of see characters kind of get that, but then they kind of go the other way, where they just don't really fully embrace their fellow man. And so, yeah, it's just a really beautiful film. It's a great like a thematic story to put on top of like basically like almost like a heist or like a get out of prison kind of film.
Yeah.
I just and again, this was done like right sort of before, well, yeah, sort of leading up into World War II. It's brewing, it's coming.
Yeah.
So I think that context really kind of matters. I love this film. I think it's great.
That's what I was going to comment on too. Is like you were talking about how it's bringing up these ideas of like in reality, like it shouldn't be like we shouldn't be having these things of like this is mine, this is yours. I have to hate you because I've always hated you, kind of a thing. And it's just kind of ironic that this is put out right before World War II. Like that always struck me as kind of like the ultimate irony with this movie is that like it's trying to have this message and then the world literally goes to hell. But other than that, I mean, it's an absolute classic.
Yeah, and he's like a lot of people like his film. What is it? It's like Rules of the Game, which is like this sort of social commentary and I never got that film. Like, to be honest, like I never got it. I probably need to see it again, but like I just watched it and be like, what the hell? But this film really struck me, and it like I really got it from like the first time seeing it. I really really like it.
There's something about like the I don't want to say something about there's something about a good POW movie. No, there's something about just like the not necessarily the camaraderie, but just like seeing people in like people are put in a place and they can't get out or they have to get out or what are they going to do? Like, how would you react in this situation kind of a thing? Like we talk about these scenario based films all the time. Like that's something that I really like. And there's just something about that of a kind of a simple ish. I mean, this is far from a simple premise, but like, you know, that's like you want to root for these guys and you want to figure out like, okay, what would I do in this situation? What are they going to do? Like, what is this saying about the whole kind of state of the world at that point? It's interesting.
Yeah, because like there's another film sort of like this, Stalag 17, but it just again it kind of plays that the people that are trying to escape the camp for a different thematic purpose. I just felt like this film really kind of it nails it in what it's trying to say. Really nails it, I think.
Yeah, I haven't seen this film in a very long time. I think I watched it like when I was in college the first time, so like a long time ago. But it's a good film. What can I say? Yeah,
it's a great one. So that's my number 40, Grand Illusion by Jean Renoir.
Number 40, dude, starting us strong. My number 40 is a movie that we've already talked about, and let's just talk about it a little bit more. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I mean, this movie is just fucking incredible. Again, we talked about the kind of all the different pieces that had to come together. You have this like crazy, insane book that was written by a guy just on pretty much experimental LSD at that point, and just he had the wildest trips, and he documented them very well in that book. The book, of course, is told through the perspective of the chief, which is not how the movie is told. The movie very much hangs on Jack Nicholson, which is, amazing. Jack Nicholson, one of the greats. I mean, we talked about him. He was an easy writer, and kind of he was in a lot of those like new Hollywood movies, like the New Wave or whatever of those new Hollywood movies. And it's just such an interesting movie because it doesn't feel dated in any way to me. Like in a way that like a lot of other 70s, like you can point at a thing and say that's a 70s. Like there's another movie I believe that this week on my list that you can point at it and say that's a 70s music, or that's a 70s movie. Like the soundtrack, the outfits, the kind of the types of people, the way they talk, everything about it is 70s. Cuckoo's Nest is just kind of a real human story about these people kind of not necessarily trapped in this insane asylum, but they're there and they have to just deal with it. And it's just like all these interesting scenarios. I mean, I love this film kind of for how watchable it is. Like, and it's also, it's another one of those, like you were saying, like a TV all-star. Like if this movie's playing on TV, you're not flipping the channel, because no matter, like you could drop in at any point in this movie and it's just like, it's a compelling scene. It's just every single time you drop in a scene with Nurse Ratched and you're like, what is this crazy bitch talking about? You drop into a scene where they're playing basketball and, Jack Nicholson's out there wheeling and dealing on the basketball court. Like it's just funny and it's relatable and it's really tragic at the end. And I want to give a special shout out to Brad Dourif, who I feel like does not get enough credit just in general as an actor. He plays Billy. I think Billy's his character's name, right? In this movie.
I believe so. I'm not
sure. The young kid at the end. He's just, it's such a understated, like amazing performance that he gives. And you kind of remember by the end of it, like, oh yeah, these are all mental patients technically, but the movie's about the institution, right? It's about what the institution does to the individuals. So I don't know. It's such a great movie. And, I just love how endlessly rewatchable it is. And again, it doesn't really get mired into the like, oh yeah, that's a fun artifact from its time. Like you could watch this movie in 100 years and it's still just as fun.
Yeah, totally. Like it's a masterpiece. Great acting. I think this was one of the very few films to like win like the big five. So like at the Oscars, so it won like Best Picture, Best Director, Best Cinematographer, Best Actor, Best Actress.
And I think, did it win Screenplay as well?
Probably. I'd have to look it up. I would think Best Adapted would would make sense if it won that too.
Let's
But
see,
yeah, this
hold
is it.
on.
This is universally
Best
acclaimed.
picture. Okay, best picture, best actor. So this is the big five. Best picture, best actor in a leading role, best actress in a leading role, best director, best writing.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
So it's yeah, and it won all those.
all of those. Yeah.
Yeah, very impressive. Yeah, it's a great film. It's a great film.
And shout out, I didn't know this, or maybe I did, and I didn't remember. Brad Dourif nominated for best supporting actor in this movie. Should have won.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the film's amazing. It's just so rewatchable. It's just so.
It's something. It's something that I could recommend to anyone. If anyone is like, "Oh, what's a good movie to watch?" and like, if it's a 20-year-old, like you watch this movie, they'll enjoy it. I think.
Yeah. All right. So my number 39 is a Charlie Chaplin film. One of the films regarded as his best, City Lights from 1931. So yeah, City Lights is it's an interesting film. So like, it was made at a time when basically the silent era was over. But he had sort of started it kind of at the tail end. So he was like, yeah, I'm just gonna keep at it. Just make it silent anyway. I don't care. And it's seen as like one of his absolute best films ever. And it's just like a very sweet story about, his character, the tramp, falls in love with this blind flower girl. And so she doesn't know, who he is or what he does. And so then he's just like trying to figure out some way to impress her or whatever, while also going through these weird adventures. And he meets up with this millionaire alcoholic kind of weirdo guy who's like, he's like drunk. And then he's like his friend and he's not drunk. He's like, who the hell are you? It's really funny. And this has like so many of these fun scenes. Like there's a scene where he's like on the skates and then like he's skating right next to the cliff, basically a cliff, like a cartoon or something. It's really cool how they did that. That was actually a matte painting. That's how they did that shot.
That makes sense.
Fucking crazy.
Yeah.
That was crazy. Like when I saw it, I was like, whoa, like it just makes you realize like how at this time they knew how to do anything and everything.
I was just gonna say, like, you forget how like much they perfected the craft, right?
Yeah, because you see that shot and you're like, oh dude, he's on the fucking edge. Nope, that was just a matte painting and they did some forced perspective to make it look like there was a thing, but it was just him basically in a studio.
Wow.
It was like a studio in London. And this movie is known because like the ending is so kind of beautiful and poetic and like sad but I don't know, it just hits you in the feels. Really hits you in the feels. It's one of his absolute best films ever.
Yeah, I've certainly heard about he's got a few that are like, the Chaplin kind of like the best ever. Chaplin is a little bit of a blind spot for me, admittedly. I grew up with like some of like the clips, right? Like the bits and pieces that were like kind of traded around, but like I don't think I ever like sat down and watched any of his movies, to be honest with you, which is a great sadness. So it's definitely a blind spot for me. But you bringing this up to me is kind of like filtering out some of the other ones because he's made a lot of fucking movies. So I'll definitely, because and it's another thing too, is like my kind of process is just like, all right, I'm gonna get into a particular actor or filmmaker, and I try, like I did this. I learned this lesson when I first got into Hitchcock, or like the second or third time I got into Hitchcock, and I was like, I'm gonna watch every Hitchcock movie, and then I was like, no, I'm not. I'm absolutely not. So you got to choose your battles sometimes, and so for Chaplin, for sure, I'm gonna have to check this one out.
Yeah, I think what's funny is some of my favorites of his are in the post-silent era. City Lights, Modern Times, The Great Dictator, Limelight. Those are all like he did after, and like Limelight's a sound film, and it's him and Buster Keaton. It's like amazing. Yeah,
Buster Keaton's another one that's just like, as a singular talent, is just like, oh my god, unbelievable. Yeah.
What's really funny too about Charlie Chaplin is like, I feel like basically we've been making something like this, like the films that he makes, since he started making them.
Oh yeah.
Like he pretty much figured out a lot of them did. It's basically funny guy, hot girl. He's trying to get the hot girl.
Yeah.
Stuff happens, and then something happens at the end with it. That's Adam Sandler. That's every Adam Sandler movie.
Mm-hmm.
That's, you know, the Judd Apatow movies.
It's every rom-com almost. Yeah.
It's the same. It's the same thing. We've just been doing it for, you know, over 100 years.
Damn.
But he just is so fucking good at like hitting you with the emotional kind of, you know, like making you feel something.
Yeah.
Like that's what makes him so great, is like you really feel something in the films.
I remember being a kid and finding a clip of that speech he gives in The Great Dictator, and I was just like, that was Charlie. I thought Charlie Chaplin did those, you know, the slapstick and the sketches. I was like, he talks, you know, but I was a kid, like I didn't know any better, and I was just like really kind of. I watched it a couple times, and I was trying to like really understand what he was saying. Obviously, it was a little bit beyond my mental capabilities, but I was just like, it sounds like he's saying some really like important shit. I was like, was Charlie Chaplin like a really smart guy? I thought he was just the tramp.
Yeah, that's the thing too. Yeah. Is like comedians sometimes they get pigeonholed, like that they can't be intellectual, but he was definitely a very intellectual person.
Yeah, I mean, a movie that it didn't make the top 100. If we did it to a top 200, it would be. But like a movie that I have to constantly bring up to people is Being There with Peter Sellers, because people are like, Peter Sellers, Pink Panther, funny, huh? And I'm like, yeah, but like, watch that movie. I mean, he was another guy who was just like a Jim Carrey type, where like he could turn it on and off, but like internally, you felt like there was a struggle there throughout his entire life. So yeah, a lot of these, like you were saying, a lot of these comedians were like really insightful people.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because like that's the film, The Great Dictator, is just so like perfect the way that he
and at the time it came out and everything, yeah,
he really just hit the nail on the head with satirizing what was, you know, just going to be one of the worst moments for humanity. This massive war is going to kill like 100 million people. Yeah. Good stuff. So, so that's my number 39, City Lights from Charlie Chaplin.
City Lights. Cool. Well, turning it completely around and bringing us back to the 21st century, my number 39, and this movie should be a lot higher, but I still have yet to see it as many times as some of the other movies. But number 39 is, without a doubt, I mean, this could be in the top 10, The Wolf of Wall Street. And there's a couple of reasons why I love it and I feel so strongly about The Wolf of Wall Street, is because not only because it's a Marty Scorsese movie, it's got all these great actors in it and whatever, all these great scenes. It's just, I have a particular affinity for movies that just go not too far, but like they just go where they're supposed to go. You could commission him to write anything pretty much, but the stuff that he writes, like he finds the humor in it. And this movie is a riot. It gives you it's the full buffet. It's a 3-hour long. It's not, you don't feel like it's compromised by the studio in any way. You feel like they got everything that they needed to get in there for this movie. Like at the very beginning of the movie, he's like, yeah, that's me. And that's girl sucking my cock. And I'm like, here we go. We're in it. Like, this is what I fucking like. When you talk about entertainment value and getting your money's worth, I mean, this movie goes all over the place. This guy, Leonardo DiCaprio, plays Jordan Belfort, and obviously it's embellished and obviously it's very Hollywood and very crazy, but it's a Martin Scorsese movie, which means that it's really, really smart, the way that it's made, the way that it uses music to kind of take you through all the different time periods, the way that the look of the film changes as the years go on. Like that's kind of one of the things that I feel like people don't really talk about Marty's movies, is kind of, I mean, obviously people talk about him, but like a lot of times when he does movies like Goodfellas or, you know, things that span decades or 10, 20 years, the way that he goes through the time period is like very kind of deliberate. Like I remember when he did The Aviator, he shot different types of film stock for each different period to reflect the film stock that was being used at that time in Hollywood. And he does that even for something like The Wolf of Wall Street, which is perfect, just popcorn. You don't have to think about all the film stuff, but it's still in there because Martin Scorsese's doing it. And it's got all of the Scorsese-isms. I put this movie right up there with Goodfellas and Casino because it's got the voiceover, it's got the freeze frames, it's got all the fucking crazy situations. It's very quotable. You know, you've got the Matthew McConaughey character that comes and he's like, "You jerk off." I mean, it's just so many great scenes, and I just love that it's willing. It just goes there. Like the language in this movie is a mile a minute. People are talking real fast. They're cursing really fast, and they're talking about shit that like it was just like, whoa, like, all right, you know, there's a lot of nudity in it and cocaine and stuff like that, which you don't really see in a lot of Scorsese movies. But again, he's not afraid to go there. He's just showing you this time period. And short of an Oliver Stone, I couldn't think of someone like, I just didn't think Marty not necessarily had it in him, but like, I didn't envision like this to me feels more like an Oliver Stone movie, or like, God forbid, a Brian De Palma movie or something, where it just like goes completely off the wall and we're just like, you know, there's just cocaine and tits everywhere. But this movie does it, but it's just has that craft to it that I really appreciate.
Yeah.
I mean, I love this fucking movie. Then I have a story about the first time I saw it as well.
This movie is something else, man. Like it's so, like you said, it just goes there. The drugs, you know, the doing the lewds. Like all the like, oh, I love the scene when they're like trying to like go, they like get on their boat. And they're going somewhere. There's a fucking massive storm, and they're like, we're all gonna die. It's just so funny. It's so funny, and like I love that scene where he goes to the country club and he gets on the phone. And it's like, wait, what'd you say? And like, just Marty just does these brilliant things, just to show like his subjective state when he's like drugged. Like when he looks down the stairs, it looks like they're infinite. Even though it's like 2 fucking steps, and he looks down and it's like 50 steps. It's so funny. And then like there's a voiceover. He's like, oh yeah, then I got in the car and I got home. Thank God, not a scratch. And then like
it's completely totaled, and he's just fucking crawling through the wreckage. Yeah.
And then it shows him like crashing the car, and he's like hitting every single car on the road. It's just, there's so many moments that are unbelievably funny. And
it's amazing that it worked. It's amazing that because the talent involved in this thing is kind of astronomical. I mean, Leonardo DiCaprio doing this and like being willing to do this stuff on camera, you know, because we were talking about like how, you know, in the Hollywood game, you got to play it correctly, and you've got to make sure that, you know, you can't, like if you were ever wanting to do, like, let's say if you wanted to do a family movie, he probably couldn't do this movie, but he doesn't really give a fuck because he's Leonardo DiCaprio. So
for real, right? Like that, how big would the payday be for him to do a Disney movie?
Anytime that, you know, he could pick up the phone or somebody could call him, or, you know, a fucking CEO could call him and say like, hey, we're going to set you up at Disney and we're going to do this, like any number of infinite possibilities. But I like that he's in it more or less for the craft, and he's got this working relationship with Martin Scorsese, and they've got this hilarious script. I mean, Rob Reiner in this movie plays Jordan's dad. He's so fucking funny, and they just find all of these different like things to put in this movie. And so the first time I saw this, obviously I saw it in theaters because I was excited for it to come out. It was around the time where the kind of hype, or rather like The Irishman was announced, or rather it had been announced, and it was like, Marty's gonna do another one with Pacino and De Niro and fucking Pesci and whatever. And then this movie came out instead, and I was like, this might actually be like even better than that at the time, you know? So I went to see it the first time. It was me, my friend, my friend's, this is weird, my friend's girlfriend, sort of girlfriend. It was like the first or second time they'd ever gone out, except she was kind of a family friend. So we all knew her, and we all kind of grew up with her. And then on top of that, my mom came with us because, again, she was the girl was a family friend, Christian, by the way, and my mom only showed up because she likes Marty Scorsese movies. She was like, I really like Goodfellas, and I really like, she was super into like The Age of Innocence and stuff like that. So I was like, yeah, great. You know, Marty's got a new movie out. And like, I remember I was at work that day, and I was on my phone looking at reviews. Like I went on Fandango to buy tickets, right? And there were reviews for the movie on Fandango, and it was getting bombed. It was getting review bombed on Fandango that day that it was released. Yeah, like the user reviews, not the Rotten Tomatoes. And I was reading the user reviews, and it was like, had to walk out. This is pure filth. I can't believe someone of Martin Scorsese's stature would stoop so low. Leonardo DiCaprio should be ashamed of himself. Like, these were all reviews I was reading the day the movie released, and I had bought the tickets. My mom was in, my buddy was in, and his innocent girl was going to come too. And I was like,
So you were like, hell yeah, but I don't know how it's going to work out for everyone else.
Well, obviously I was like, hell yeah, because we haven't gotten to my favorite movie of all time, but like, yes, I was hell yeah. I mean, this is exactly like, give me cocaine and titties. Like, please, that's all I ever want. But then I was like, it's awkward seeing movies that have nudity with my mom. It's awkward. This guy's going to bring this girl that we all knew from like church from 10 years ago. Like, what's gonna, but I didn't know like the extent of it. And then the movie starts, and he's like, this girl is sucking my dick. And I was like, uh-oh. And it was 3 hours of it, right?
3 hours.
And then there's just fucking nudity all over the place, and they're talking about this and that. And do you jerk off? So like, by the end of it, it was like a marathon of just... It was just a marathon of the most awkward situations you could ever possibly be in. And I remember, I mean, my mom was just like, "Oh, I can't believe you showed nudity." I'm like, "Oh yeah, yeah, they sure did." So, for all of these reasons, I mean, this movie should be higher on my list. I just need to rewatch it a couple more times. Yeah. But like, I cannot stress the entertainment value of it. Like, I have a couple friends who are like, "Oh, it's 3 hours long. I'm not watching a movie that's 3 hours long." Like, no. Like, if you could watch like 2 hours of a Netflix series, this is infinitely more entertaining than that. Yeah. And it just goes, it flows. Obviously, Thelma Schoonmaker's at cutting the shit. It's just like a perfectly edited film. It is just amazing.
It's immaculate, dude. Yeah. This movie is something else, man. Like again, and this is like the Margot Robbie coming out party
debut. Yeah, absolutely.
This is really it. This is where she became who she is, and she like. I read this thing where she wanted to do the nude scenes. She felt like it was right for her character. It had to happen to like to get the Jordan Belfort character to like really fall for her. Mm-hmm. I think this movie is like it's just so crazy and so fun. And like the other thing too is like they've done like Boiler Room and some other movies have done the kind of like the stock trading right shyster stuff.
Yeah.
What I like about this is just the pure, like he has that speech where he's like talking to everybody and he's getting them riled up to sell.
Mm-hmm.
Man, like as someone who's worked in sales at times, like that's some real shit. That is the real life shit that these crazy, like the guy when you walk into a AT&T store to buy a cell phone, half of them are fucking Jordan Belfort.
Yeah.
Like half the time you get the Jordan Belfort, the crazy motherfucker who's out there just like cannot wait to basically fuck your shit up and sell you stuff you don't want.
Dude, they're selling you fucking penny stocks, dude. Every time you walk into a cell phone
every time. And the same thing at Bank of what was it, Bank of America, or was it like Wells Fargo? Where they did this whole massive scandal where they create a bunch of fake accounts.
Mm-hmm.
Like that shit happens because someone up top said create X accounts within this time.
Yeah.
And then they're like, well, fuck, I got to hustle and find a way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, I just really like that they kind of go there to kind of show what that's like, what these kind of weird incentives do to people where it's like, yeah, if you make more money by selling shit stocks, what do you think was going to happen?
Yeah. Well, so the comparison for this movie is obviously like the Wall Street movie ever is Wall Street, right? The Oliver Stone movie. And that movie is different to me. And I love Wall Street, and we're going to talk about Oliver Stone in a second, but like, it's not as insane, even though it was made in the 80s and Oliver Stone had been a day trader and he knew about this and he was snorting cocaine nonstop at the fucking time. But Wall Street turns out to be more of a morality tale, right? And it's about greed is good and that. And there's that like love story that kind of gets, mixed in there and muddled in there. What I like about Wolf of Wall Street is that removed from all of that stuff, it gives us the pure, and I think the point of it is it's just the pure adrenaline ride. It's not concerned with what it looks like to the outside world. It's not concerned about having a message. I mean, obviously it does have a message, but the delivery of it is just like a bump of cocaine. Like it is non-stop. And that's what I like about it. And it just feels like Martin Scorsese. I mean, he was, he's like in his 70s when he made this fucking movie. And it's just like, it's just so fun to like, you get that sense of when you watch him kind of on set or when you watch him give interviews and stuff, he's always like really hyper and he's really passionate about movies and stuff. And you get the sense that like that this is just what he's like. He was such a high energy movie from like an older director. It's really interesting, but you just get that's like his personality kind of.
Yeah, it's some great stuff. There's so many cool things that I like about this film.
Yeah, no, same.
Just the way it's shot, and like it's like you said, it's got all the Scorsese-isms. It's got all this stuff.
Margot Robbie in this movie is basically the mob wife. I mean, the way that we go back, they end up having kids, and then they end up having a fight and slapping each other, and then she throws them out. I mean, it's like textbook, like Scorsese-isms throughout.
That's what that's the thing too. That was the analogy that really kind of made me like this film. Is like, it's the day trader guy is the same as the mob guy.
Is the mob guy? Yeah,
they are the same, except when he gets basically sort of shielded by society. Society sees him as legitimate. And instead of having him, go to jail for life, he gets whatever, some kind of basically a slap on the wrist, and he's playing fucking tennis in his prison.
Yeah.
And then he kind of comes out and he kind of rehabilitates himself.
Which is, the scene in Goodfellas where they're making sausages in prison. I mean, it's basically the same thing, right? Like it's crazy how these things are set up, and by the people they're set up to just kind of let this happen. Yeah,
I really like this movie. It's awesome. It's fun. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's great.
I think at some point we're gonna look at this time period of the movie Scorsese's making and just like how cool it is that he's able to do think of this, all the stuff he's made. Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah.
The Irishman.
Yeah.
He's making another $200 million movie with De Niro and Leo, which is some kind of mystery.
Yeah, it's like like Tarantino had that quote where he's just like, most movie directors, they don't make it into old age. Like they end up fizzling out and they end up you can't possibly make more than 10 good movies basically, and I want every movie to be a hit or whatever. He's had a couple of those quotes, but in particular he's just like, once you get old you just lose it and you just can't do it forever. Scorsese's the exception to that rule. He's
doing all the things he's always wanted to do basically, or as many as he's wanted,
It's insane to me that somebody that started out in the fucking 60s in like the new Hollywood movement just now gets to make everything he's ever wanted to make. I mean, granted, he's done kind of everything else. Like he's done The Last Temptation, which was a project. He's done, Goodfellas and stuff that he wanted to do. But like now he's given complete creative freedom after 50 years of being one of the most successful fucking money-making directors. That's a lesson right there.
It really absolutely is a lesson. Absolutely. Yeah. You gotta think of it in long term, and you gotta be in it for the long game. Because if you want I'm gonna get rich in 5 years, it's not gonna happen.
No, it's not.
But if you're I really am dedicated to doing this, you might find yourself 20 years later and you have a foothold, and then another 10 years you're seasoned and you're kind of really doing the things you want to do. You got to stick with it, basically.
Yeah. And, another example is Ridley Scott. He's 80 years old and he's got he's got hundreds of producer credits. He's got at least 2 or 3 films in production right now or in pre-production. He's got these mega massive $100 million projects going, and man's 80 years old. So but it is interesting. Like you said, you gotta just fucking stick it out, and you have to be good. You have to make them money. There's a give and take. You gotta, I think who said it? Steven Soderbergh was like, I do one for me, I do one for them, kind of.
Yeah.
There's that back and forth.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing too is again, there's so much money. I think the other thing too is, the streaming era, how much money is being spent by Netflix spends $18 billion a year on content. That's a fucking huge amount of money. This next movie that Scorsese is doing, he's doing it through Apple. Apple threw $200 million at him.
Huh.
So
what? Good. Yeah. Good. Because Paramount chickened out so hard on The Irishman.
They bailed on it. Yeah, they got scared.
Which I understand because again, I think we had a discussion. I don't know if that movie would have done that great in theaters, but or at least good enough to justify $250 million of like shitty de-aging CGI that like YouTubers were able to do in like a day. But yeah, it's kind of good. I think we're still at that point where we're probably at the end of it, where like streaming services will just give a couple $100 million to some of these auteurs.
You know, I think we brought it up last week. The Russo brothers are going to do a $200 million movie with, you know, a couple big actors, Chris Evans and someone else. I mean, they're going to start shelling out tons of money.
Yeah, it's a weird time.
Yeah. And he's basically benefiting. Scorsese's benefiting from it, which is good because like
it's just so good. If anyone was going to benefit from this shit, I mean, he'd fucking come on. It's a better world to be in when Scorsese's making movies.
Absolutely.
So. Yeah.
Cool. All right. So my number 38, speaking of gangster movies and other kind of stuff like this, the film City of God from 2002. Directed by Fernando Meirelles and Katina Lund, I believe, are the two directors. This movie is something else. This movie is insane. We talk about TV All-Star. This movie, you see this movie at any point in the narrative, you're into it. You are in, dude. Yeah. This thing, like the frame one, you are in this story. And it is so. You think Italian gangsters are crazy in New York? Wait until you see the fucking kids in the favelas in Brazil, who are like 8 years old, sticking people up and shit, like and murdering people. Like that's the world. And then we're like, holy fuck, what am I into? And you're sucked in. You cannot leave this movie, and that's what it's about. It's like basically a drug gang war from the 60s to the 80s. Yeah, we kind of follow these people, like we follow this kid, and like, you know, the acting they get out of, and these are like, you know, again, they do some kind of neorealistic kind of shit.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that. Yeah,
they take real people and they put them in, and they get these incredible performances out of these actors. This movie, it has everything you want from like a gangster movie, right? The violence, the sex, the craziness, the drugs, the time kind of the saga of it, the time saga. And then the other sort of part of this is like there's someone who is becoming a sort of a reporter documenting what's happening, and we're seeing it through their eyes. And like they do some cool stuff with the editing. This is very kind of MTV kind of style editing, big time. Yeah, that's another thing too. I can say a lot about this movie. This movie blew me away when I saw it. Like, just could not look away.
When did you see it?
I probably saw it around that time, probably like 2003, 2004. I'm pretty sure the first time I saw it was on television, just like flipping channels, and just kind of got. And then at some point, I saw the whole thing, and it's just like, it's just so powerful. It's so powerful, this narrative and the way that they're telling the stuff with the kids, and like. It's totally different. Like, you know, when I saw this, I was probably like, I don't know. I was pretty young. Yeah, I was like a teenager. And so the idea of seeing Brazilian people, like understanding their life at all and seeing them playing soccer and like they're doing all this shit, and they go from playing soccer to like fucking killing people, and like it's like how different.
And you realize the reason that they play soccer is that it is the only legitimate way out of the favelas. It is the only way they have to escape that life, is just to fucking get good at soccer. It's crazy.
Because like they've seen people. I mean, when was the Pele? Like Pele's Brazilian, right?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. But Pele was big in like the 50s.
Yeah. So they grew up watching Pele play.
Yeah.
Or at least hearing about Pele.
Well, but they had there's a lot of other ones. Fucking. I don't want to say, but like Ronaldo, I think Ronaldinho, right? That's the one. Sorry, I get them confused. But yeah, like the Brazil has a lot of Soccer players.
Brazil has a lot,
yeah. And again, the reason for that is that it's one of the ways that they have out of the shit. Basically, it's because like in America, we were talking about like there's all these industries that are set up where you could kind of like fail upwards. You could become a day trader, and if you do enough coke and you're kind of smart enough and you're at the right place in the right time, you can kind of ascend. And there's all of these different structures set up. Not necessarily criminal, but like there's ways. Uh,
The legitimate shit, but you're still
there's only one quote unquote legitimate thing, that at least the way that this movie presents it and the way that a lot of other media presents Brazil, that's the only legitimate way, is just to get good at soccer, which is just so sad.
that is crazy. That is crazy. It's there's so much about this movie that it's just like it's showing you this world, right?
Yeah,
this real world
that a lot of people were not privy to before.
Not privy to at all. Not
like,
privy to at all.
There's a movement of like South American films throughout the 90s, I feel like, in the early 2000s, that showed some of this stuff, but like never on this scale. Like I remember this movie was everywhere. It got picked up. Like I saw this movie. I was in Romania still. I was a kid in Romania when it came out. I think it came out like 2003 over there or something, and it was just everywhere. Like even in other countries. I mean, it was a big success, and it's good that it was kind of the one that was chosen, I guess, because it has the crime mass. Like it has a little bit like some of the same language that we're kind of used to with the kind of the crime saga and everything, but like right off the bat, like I remember that beginning scene with the way it's shot, with the fucking chickens and the kids, like just how crazy handheld everything is and how dirty the whole movie looks. It's something else. This movie's it's crazy. Yeah,
this is like the type of film that it really kind of it brings you into this world, and you're just like, whoa, Brazil.
Yeah,
what a crazy place.
Like that's a place that exists.
Yeah, because like at times you're like, oh well, I don't, maybe you just don't think about how other people live in the world, and at least for me, this was
No, we need it. We need it so badly. We need movies like this that kind of break through because again, it's not like there aren't South American movies being made, but like we need movies that break through. And I don't really know what the story behind this one is. Like I don't know what fucking company or distributor saw it and they figured they were going to put it out everywhere around the world. But we need every once in a while a movie like this that breaks through, and not just to be the token, oh, this is the foreign film of the year kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. Like films that, like, I mean, I guess you could say Parasite was like another moment like this, where like it was kind of the one Korean movie that broke through, even though there's hundreds of fucking amazing Korean movies that people don't watch, but it's like the one that turns people on to that kind of cinema. And I think this movie did that in spades for a lot of South American cinema.
Yeah, the director, he's done a lot of other kind of interesting stuff.
He does. He recently just did The Two Popes.
Yeah, he did The Two Popes. He did, there's this other film, like sort of a series he did. I forget what exactly it was, but it's about the police in Brazil and them fighting corruption. It's like he did two films, and like they were sort of like
he like stepped away from it for a while, because I remember I watched like an interview with him a while ago. He was just like, he's stepped away for a bit.
Because having a movie like this can be a curse.
Dude, he fucking did The Constant Gardener. Have you seen that shit?
No.
It's so good. It's so good. That's another movie I saw when it came out. It's with Ray Fiennes and Rachel Weisz, and it's another one of those fucking. It's like a revenge movie. Like his wife dies or something while she was pregnant, and then she gets murdered or whatever by some criminals, and then he just fucking goes out there on like a rampage. It's like a history of violence almost. It is. Woo. Yeah. This guy had quite a string.
Yeah, and I'm glad he was able to like really do some cool stuff with the clout that was given to him, because like sometimes these things happen and then people are like, they kind of get shoved aside, or like with Bong Joon-ho, he tried to do that Snowpiercer movie and the fucking Weinsteins stabbed him in the back. So it's good, it's good to like have these people really be able to use that ascension to tell the stories they want to tell and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I can't say enough things about this. The funniest, I guess, most recent anecdote about this movie I have is that a friend of mine is marrying a Brazilian girl from Brazil. Like they're working on that. Well, they were working on trying to get her over here to kind of finalize everything, but then Corona happened, so they're kind of long term right now. But they're engaged, and I believe it was her, like she turned him on to this movie because she was like, okay, well, there's one fucking Brazilian movie that Americans are gonna like understand. So right off the bat, so there's this one. So they watched this one, and then he came to me. He was like, "You're a film guy. You see City of God?" I'm like, "Yeah. What about it?" And he was like, "I don't know. I don't know. It's just too much. I just didn't feel it. Like the something about like the editing, the camera movement. It was just too much. I didn't like it. I couldn't get into it. And I was like, yeah, well, I mean, it puts you in the shit. What can I tell you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this was distributed by Miramax when it came out.
Miramax. Wow, great. What a great pick. Like whoever made that decision. Yeah.
Dude, they, unfortunately, with the fucking these scumbag Weinstein, but they did some great work.
Yeah, and this is before Miramax like died and then rose, like got reborn as
yeah. They got like bought up by Disney basically at one point,
Yeah.
and then they got spun off again.
Yeah. They're technically back, but not really. I think Miramax, like the original one, died in like 2005, but they were like at the top of their fucking game during this period.
Yeah. They're basically like what, like the Neons and the A24s are today.
Mm-hmm. That's very comparable.
Is it kind of crazy? Like Miramax is now a cultural artifact.
Yeah. Don't say that.
Back in my day, there was this thing, Miramax.
Right. And back in my day,
before we knew that the guy was a fucking, we knew, but we didn't do anything about it. But they were distributing these like incredible films. They were creating these people's careers. Ben Affleck and Matt Damon created their career.
Yeah, no, my education was, and Kevin Smith, and my education was Hollywood Video. And like when I was at Hollywood Video as a kid and I saw that Miramax logo, I was like, that was more or less a seal of quality for me. That was like, this is gonna be good. Because I mean, that's the stuff I was into. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So this film is something else.
Yeah, this film should absolutely. I mean, it's you got to have a little bit of a strong stomach for it, I guess. Like this is in a subcategory of films with like Slumdog Millionaire and stuff like that, where like if you just don't want to see like the shit, like if you just like don't like dirty movies that look dirty, not that not in the other way, but it could like make your stomach kind of turn, but it's such an achievement.
It's such an achievement.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so like there are some films like I can really remember when I like first saw them and like that, having that reaction where you're just totally engrossed in the narrative and you're just like, wow, what? I feel like I've never seen anything that felt like this before. This was a movie that just hit me like that.
Yeah. Sure. That's a good way to put it.
Cool. Yeah. So that's my number 38, City of God.
Cool. Well, my number 38 is in a similar sort of vein, not really, but kind of, just in the terms of the dirtiness of it. This is another movie that is just MTV editing, and it'll just make you fucking puke. Not just for the MTV editing, but for the content of it itself. This is Oliver Stone's Natural Born Killers. Absolutely one of my favorite movies. Following up The Wolf of Wall Street, I think this is a great way to follow it up on the list. This is written from a Quentin Tarantino story, and then which is an interesting story about how this came about, because this movie came out in 94, and it came out, I think, either before or within like a couple months of Pulp Fiction. So Tarantino wasn't necessarily a name, but Oliver Stone has a history of like Oliver Stone was honestly like the Tarantino before Tarantino. Like he was kind of just the out there insane screenwriter, and he won a bunch of Oscars as a screenwriter. And it's a very cool moment where you have this guy who's now an established director, and he takes a story. Obviously, he reworks the screenplay, but he takes the story from this Tarantino kid. Like I've seen Oliver Stone tell this story where he's just like, yeah, there was this Tarantino kid, and he had a couple scripts going around in Hollywood, right? He had True Romance, Pulp Fiction was going around. He ended up making that one. He basically chose to make that one, and then there was another one. I think was it Crimson Tide? It was some like Jerry Bruckheimer movie that ended up getting made.
Really?
And yeah, and then Oliver Stone picked this one, and he was like, I can tell this story. So this is basically Oliver Stone at his most unhinged, most well known obviously as a director for Platoon and Wall Street and JFK and The Doors, but as a screenwriter, is kind of like he understands how to tell a good story, and most famously, wrote the screenplay for Scarface. So from the terms of like the excess and the violence and the craziness, he gets it. And this movie, when it came out, was like a hard hard X rating. They refused to release it. They went down. This is another one like an 8mm situation where they went down to the frame by frame and they were like, how much do you want to take out of this movie? It is incredibly violent. And the way that it's shot, it's very interesting because he mixes black and white film stock with incredibly saturated, super colorful film stock, and it's edited all over the place. That beginning scene is in a diner with is a good Tarantino movie, starts in a diner. And with Mickey and Mallory, played by Woody Harrelson and Juliette Lewis. They're just basically knocking over this diner, and they're just shooting people and blowing their dicks off, and there's all this stuff. There's a bit they do so oh my god, this movie's so insane. So the entire thing is done through the prism of like the media, right? So this movie is about, it's a commentary on the news media and how we're constantly fed killers and sociopaths and all this stuff at the time. I mean, this is before 9/11 because then everything was about terrorists for like a decade. But at the time, it was just like all about, serial killers, mass murderers, this and that. Your neighbors are going to eat you alive, like all of this crazy shit. And so the entire movie, that's why he's mixing all these different types of footages and stuff. And it's supposed to be this like crazy, doped up, like you're getting sensory overload from your TV, essentially, is what the experience of watching this movie is. And in particular, the most brilliant thing about this movie is the way he does the flashback with like what happens to these people that they become so fucked up. Mickey and Mallory basically they're just traveling serial killers, basically. It's a tale as old as time. They're lovers and they want to just murder people for the hell of it. And that's the thing. They're doing it for the hell of it. There's no higher purpose. They're doing it just to be agents of chaos. And they say that multiple times throughout the movie, but they kind of investigate like what happens to these people that makes them go this crazy. And particularly the backstory for Juliette Lewis's character is her abusive father, played by Rodney Dangerfield. And the entire thing is done as like a sitcom with a laugh track. And so Rodney Dangerfield comes in and he's basically saying like, I'm gonna rape you. And then there's a laugh track. And then he just starts beating his kids, and then there's a laugh track, and then it's like it's the sleaziest, most uncomfortable thing. And then but you realize the point of it is to be like you're kind of desensitized to it at this point, like on the TV and stuff. And this was done 25 years ago, probably more than that. So like I think it's very prescient, but the delivery of it is just unfiltered Oliver Stone. So if you can't handle it, it's like, again, in a similar vein of like A City of God, where like if you just can't handle the fucking craziness, it's not for everybody. But for me, this is absolutely a one of my favorite movies for that reason. And there's a lot of talent involved. Again, Dangerfield, Tom Sizemore's in this as like a corrupt detective. He literally comes in and he notices that like, so Julia Lewis has sex with a guy on the hood of a car, and then she kills him. And then he comes in and they find pubic hair at the scene. And then Tom Sizemore's like, oh yeah, the pubic hair. Oh. Like, it's just, everybody in this movie is just a fucking degenerate.
Yeah.
So, it's right up my alley. So I can't say, there's a scene in a hotel room where Woody Harrelson takes a hostage, and it's very uncomfortable. And there's all this like rear projection stuff going on, and he's like trying to do stuff to this hostage. It's insane. Eventually, Tommy Lee Jones is in this. Robert Downey Jr. is in this. Yep. It is just a fucking great movie, and I can't say enough about it.
This movie is crazy.
Yeah.
So I was watching this thing actually yesterday where Tarantino was talking about, he had gotten some award, and so he was talking about his process of how he became a screenwriter and writing. And basically he talked about he wrote True Romance, the first draft. In the first draft of True Romance, I believe he said that the main character was writing this movie.
Yes.
He was writing the characters about this movie.
Yeah.
And he didn't, so like he wrote this thing and he was talking about, he was like cutting up pieces of paper and like splattering it together. And then the guy who wrote Pulp Fiction with him actually typed up the screenplay
for Natural Born Killers or for True Romance?
True Romance.
Okay.
The first draft of True Romance that had part of this story in it. That then
the Mickey and Mallory story. Yeah,
that then probably got split away.
Yeah. And
then turned into this movie at some point, and someone read like the actual, like, okay, here's the Mickey and Mallory story outside of the True Romance,
Sure.
thing.
Yeah, because I believe the Christian Slater in that movie is like trying to be a screenwriter or whatever. Or like he's really into movies, but I think they might make a mention to it. I think like some of the Tarantino brands are in that movie, but like not necessarily.
Yeah, it's a little divorced.
Out.
It's a little divorced of because he didn't direct it or whatever. It's kind of divorced of the Tino-verse niche.
Right.
If he made that movie today, it would fucking, you'd be watching them watch the TV or whatever. He'd be pitching it.
Yeah.
He'd be pitching True Romance.
Absolutely. And there would be probably a really great scene, like a 10-minute scene of just pure dialogue that'll just make you holler.
Yeah. But I really like there's so much crazy shit in this movie.
Oh,
this
God.
movie is absolutely bonkers, like off the wall.
Yeah.
Crazy. Like you were talking about that scene with Rodney Dangerfield. That stuff it's funny, but it's like,
it's horrifying, dude.
It's horrifying.
And it's a great moment of just casting someone like Dangerfield. Like, again, casting a funny guy to just say some horrific shit.
Who's also he's got an edge,
He does.
It's perfect casting.
Yeah.
Because he's got an edge, and he really could play that kind of abusive dad perfectly. But then he's hella funny.
Yeah. Oh, well, he can't help but be funny. Yeah.
What? And it just really kind of makes me think of like there was a lot of TV shows in that time where it was like the dad who doesn't give a shit.
Mm-hmm.
It really felt like it was kind of playing that on the nose, but then like saying, "Oh, would you laugh at this?
Would you?" Right, exactly.
Would you laugh at this?
Right.
Is this funny? Is this fucking funny?
Mm-hmm. And a lot of you might be dealing with this at home. But it's fine. Haha, laugh. The sitcom's on at 8. Yeah.
yeah. And I felt like that's really what that was kind of going after in that moment. And then there's like a prison break, right? That happens.
Yeah. Oh my God. There's like an entire prison riot. That happens because what happens is basically, so finally they go to prison and the media, the fucking reporter, Robert Downey Jr. decides, well, let's take advantage of this. People are going nuts for true crime stuff right now. We're going to do an exclusive. We're going to do an interview with Mickey, right? And it's going to be the highest ratings. And so at every stop in this movie, the media is kind of the thing that just exacerbates it because they become so popular because, this famous couple is going around killing people. And so that's why there ends up being a riot because they give a platform to this fucking madman, which is, I think, supposed to be kind of a parallel to like what they did with Charles Manson and other types of like serial killers that they really like kind of televised and stuff. Mm-hmm. And so, like obviously you give this guy a platform and everything he says, and there ends up being a prison riot and everything is heightened. But that is kind of the point, is that at every turn, like, psychopaths exist, but the media is really what kind of accelerates it. And it's, again, funny watching this movie because I've seen this movie many times and I think I've watched it like at least once a year. And it's just interesting to me how at every point, like, it's just more prescient because like you could make this movie and you could have Robert Downey being a fucking Twitter star,
dude, true crime is like huge
right now. Yeah.
Right now, today, 2020.
Yeah.
True crime is huge. Like, if they were real people, like there would be stuff dedicated just to them.
Mm-hmm.
Just to them. Yeah.
They would have their own Netflix series for sure. Yeah.
The other thing too is like, this was like the big CNN cable 24 news cycle era.
But that's what it's critiquing. Yeah.
That was the big thing right at this point. And, you gotta, what's the point of having 24-hour news? You got to have content to be putting out there. And so, it's just like fucking when OJ was driving down with the Bronco.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
People couldn't look away, could not look away from that shit. And it's a real thing. Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's another thing too that has to be brought up is the OJ shit.
The OJ thing. The OJ thing.
Trial.
And then immediately before that, it was the fucking riots, right?
Yeah, the riots.
Because the whole reason that blows up is because there's a tape and it goes to the news. So yeah.
Yeah. And it's just all just out there in the ether, It's just all out there. All this stuff is just out there. And there's a funny story. Like I think it was Terminator 2. Cameron said he was shooting right across from where that happened.
Yeah, I remember the story in like 90 or 91.
Right across from where that shit happened. He's right there.
fucking crazy. But yeah, I mean, and this stuff hasn't stopped. I think the impetus for this was like, yes, there's the Tarantino story, but everything that Oliver Stone does has to be filtered through his like kind of view. And he's always got a hard stance on like not necessarily a political stance, but he's just like he has something to say about society. And for him, the impetus for this was when I think, like you said, like when news became for profit. That like really bothered him, and so that's kind of why this movie exists.
That's another thing too. The 90s, I forget, but they started doing all this stuff where they basically deregulated, and that's why Fox News came about, and why the 24-hour CNNs and all this stuff, and the for profit, and they were buying up these small companies that were never for profit,
and ultimately there's like 2 or 3 or 4 conglomerates, and that's it. That's all of the news.
They centralize
the country.
And what, like, when you have someone that says, "I need a bottom line," what do you get? Ambulance chasing.
Yeah.
You get Mickey and Mallory. Exactly. And this is what it is, and it just fuels it. The media really does fuel. A lot of it's really hard because, like, unfortunately in America, like the big thing is like the mass shootings. For real, yeah. And it's like when you like. And it's kind of getting exported too. Like we could go there with that, but like it really, like, no, for real. The fucking guy who shot up the Christchurch in New Zealand. It's just maniacally crazy what the guy did. He
live streamed the whole thing.
He live streamed, and so
those videos are still out there. Like if you
it'll never go. It's on the internet. It's never gonna go away.
Yeah, there's always gonna be some asshole on some fucking board somewhere post a gif of it. It's never gonna stop. Yeah,
it's never gonna stop. And that's like the ability to weaponize and mass duplicate ad infinitum this stuff, this violence. But it has that visceral appeal, that human thing. You could click on this thing and you can see 10 people die in 20 seconds.
Right.
Like that has a palpable resonance that just human beings cannot look away from. You can't look away.
Yeah.
Because how often in the entire history of human existence can you see the moment where something so horrible happened?
Well, I mean, back in the day, they would do this in public squares, right? I mean, they would have public executions and gladiator fights and stuff. And I mean, you would think that as we get more quote unquote civilized and we kind of domesticate ourselves, that we move away from that stuff, that we can subdue that part of us. But here, it surfaces. Here it is again. Like the human animal hasn't really evolved, as I think the point, and it just sucks.
Yeah, dude. But I think this movie, it hits on all that stuff. It really kind of, like, this is just the beginning, right?
This is just the tip of it, yeah.
Tip of the iceberg.
But for the time and for what they had to work with, I mean, it couldn't have been done better, I don't think. And it's funny to me that you mentioned that, like, people are more than happy to watch a video of somebody being beheaded online. But when it comes to movies, like this movie is out, like we just talked about all of its like cultural significance, but like as a film industry significance is like a huge moment of, like, again, the violence and censorship and like how much is too much that you can show on a film and how much is too like visceral, and it fucks with audiences and stuff. And it's like films can be too violent, but our own bloodlust, is able to be satisfied by, like we watch this stuff anyways. Like, what's the difference basically between seeing the stuff in a film and seeing the real stuff on TV? And that's always bothered me, because, and again, Oliver Stone is like the guy. He's the guy who wrote Scarface. Scarface goes to hell basically for being too violent, and audiences and the media was like, this is fucking smut, we can't show this stuff. Anyways, 8 o'clock, somebody beheaded 3 kids. It's just like, it's
on the internet. Yeah.
What's the line? I don't know. So it's just interesting.
And then they're showing it on CNN. It's like, we want to give you a warning. This is very shocking.
Yeah. Also, but don't go see that. Don't go see that one movie.
Yeah.
It's debauchery.
Yeah. That's like, so one segment is, so like the segment is it like they're watching they're talking about something or whatever. It's like a segment of two people like, there's this movie, Natural Born Killers. It's disgusting. Breaking news. Someone just got beheaded, and we're going to give you a warning, but we're going to show it.
Exactly.
And you see the beheading, and then they go back to, oh, that was disgusting. By the way, this Natural Born Killers is, oh my God. And then they have
think of the children.
That's news.
It's never ending. Yeah. So, but it's, again, it's prescient and it's never going to go away.
Yeah, what a crazy film. Okay, so my number 37.
Bring us back.
It's Seven Samurai, the Akira Kurosawa film from 1954. Simple premise: a village full of some people that are having their stuff stolen. They get some money to hire 7 Ronin to protect them, and this is just a story of them protecting this group of farmers, this village. This is just like one of the absolutely greatest films ever made. The story is just so well done. It's so perfect.
Yeah, man.
You could. There have been so many just like doing a version of this. Magnificent Seven. I know there've been a bunch of TV shows that have done basically one episode of this premise.
Mm-hmm.
But like, just like the and he's got like basically all of his guys are here. Toshiro Mifune's in it. I forget the other guy who basically plays the lead samurai. He's in it too. He's in a bunch of his other films. I think even Nakadai is in it for like a minute. He's in this film for like a minute. Yeah. This film, and it's just so beautiful. It's just so beautifully shot, so well composed. The story is really kind of, it gets you in the feels. When there's some moments that really you're like, oh shit, that's kind of, that sucks, or like that's heartbreaking when this person dies or whatever. It's just like a perfectly done, just like universal story that he's able to hit on all these other thematic things through this lens. Yeah. And this is just like one of the greatest samurai movies ever. It's so cool.
It's perfect. You kind of nailed it. I mean, we could get into the minutiae of this movie for hours, but the point is, like, and I think I've said this about some of the other movies on your list, like, this movie was made, 60, 70 years ago. But like, what is what is cinema? Like, what is the point of cinema? Like, is it just to, is it like how can this be in the same medium as, how to lose a guy in 10 days? Like, they're kind of like, they feel like fundamentally different things. But like, when we talk about like, what is a cinematic experience? Like, what is the kind of the point of it? Is just like to put up an image and to transport you and to kind of show you shit that you could never see in real life unless you were in a battle like this or something like that. Is just to show you something extraordinary and captivate you. And I think this movie is like one of the like top 10 examples.
It's the pinnacle. Like if I had to say, like, in terms of narrative filmmaking, like if we're trying to tell a story, what is the perfect example of what you're trying to do? It's basically Seven Samurai and like The Godfather and some other films.
Exactly. Yeah.
This is it. This is the peak of what you can achieve.
Right. And I mean, like, and even like on a technical level, I mean, there's just so like, when we talked about this with Kurosawa already, but like just some of the scale of these things and the battles and the way that they were shooting this in the 50s. I mean, they had mastered the craft in a way. I mean, not in a way, like they had techniques back then that we just don't know anymore. Like those people are dead and we just don't know how to do it anymore. We do it with CGI, we do it with computers and editing and stuff. But the way that they were able to do this stuff in camera, those big battle sequences, and even then, like, understanding the language of it and the importance of a close-up and kind of the editing. I mean, it's no wonder that a lot of these Kurosawa films were remade as Westerns, because it taps into the same thing. It's like such a universal story, like you said. It's just bandits attack village, badass motherfuckers are going to defend their town. I mean, it's like, how you can't really get more universal than that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just one of the greats for sure.
Yeah, it's one of my absolute favorite films. So just to show, there's a comment real quick from Aaron. So He's a guy that I co-host some of his podcasts. He says, I'm guessing Batman and Robin didn't make either of your lists. That would be correct, Aaron.
I think you would be correct. Well, hey, you haven't gotten to my number one yet.
me and him, we did on his Popcorn and Pints, we had reviewed that movie.
Oh boy.
So we talked about that. Yeah.
That's a movie that you need a couple pints for sure.
Yeah, it's cool to drink and watch that movie. At least then you kind of get through it.
It's that's a funny comment. Thanks for putting that out, Aaron. But I saw that movie again, like many of us did. I saw it as a kid. I saw it on VHS. It was another one of those Hollywood video pickups, and I wasn't really aware that it was part of a series or anything. Like I knew the one with Jim Carrey, and then like I knew the one with Danny DeVito or whatever. And then I think I was like aware of George Clooney at the time, and I was like, George Clooney's cool. Let me pop this in, and then like it just got fucking weird. But like as a kid, I didn't hate it, but certainly not something I would want to rewatch anytime soon.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So that's my number 37. Wait, what do you say? Aaron said I had a few.
Yeah. No, you have to do it, dude.
I had a few too many drinks for that review. Yeah, you should check out that video. Like it's really. I hope Aaron uploads it at some point.
Yeah, I'd like to see it.
Yeah, Aaron wants you to come on the podcast with us.
Yo, I'm down, dude. Let's do it.
Cool. Yeah. So that's my number 37, Seven Samurai.
Cool. Well, my number 37, Akira. I'm gonna bring you right back up to the Tarantino verse. Number 37 is True Romance. And the
reason back to back.
It's a very good back to back. And I was debating like which one goes over the other one. But True Romance just has the Tarantino isms. Like
it
does. So Natural Born Killers was the story, the concept, but it wasn't like a Tarantino screenplay. Mm-hmm. This is a Tarantino screenplay.
Yeah.
And I love the story of, Tarantino's trying to, he's killing his darlings at this point. He's like, I can't make all of them. Which one do I make? I'm only given the opportunity to make one. I think I'm going to make Pulp Fiction. Who would I want to do True Romance? And he learns that Tony Scott is interested. And he's like, the fucking guy who made Revenge? The guy who made Revenge? And then like when I read that story, I was like, holy shit, an A-list director who knows about revenge? I fucking love revenge. Like I'm in that same mindset of like Tarantino likes the shitty movies and I fucking love the shitty movies. And so please give it to Tony Scott. And that's exactly what happened. And we got True Romance. And I mean, again, this movie came out in 93. So it was Reservoir Dogs was out, but again, Pulp Fiction wasn't out. So like the Tarantino verse and the style and the kind of anachronistic kind of out of time, like the structure of it, like it wasn't, that wasn't a known quantity. So like people were just doing whatever they could do with these scripts. And I think
they didn't know what to do with them, really. I think, honestly.
No, but like, I think this is about as good as this could have come out. Like, I can't think of another A-lister at the time that could make this movie. I mean, Tony Scott has always been known for how stylized his stuff is and just kind of like his camera movements and just like how crazy the colors are and everything. Again, he's like a Bruckheimer, like him and Bruckheimer kind of like rose together. Bruckheimer, if anything, was his protege. But I mean, the main character of this movie, Christian Slater, he's a pop culture geek. He's me or you, right? He watches movies. He goes to the porno theater and he just fucking hangs out and watches like bad porno movies. And he falls in love with this hooker, classic tale. But then again, we get to the strengths of this movie are not necessarily the overarching story, because it's just like, will they end up together, whatever. It's the individual bits and pieces of this. It's like the individual scenes. It's like they end up having to go on the run for one reason or another. But then you've got, and I don't know who to give credit. I mean, part of it is the script, and then the other part is, again, whoever the casting director was and just the choices that they made, because Dennis Hopper in this movie is incredible. Gary Oldman in this movie is incredible. Michael Rappaport in this movie is funny as fuck. Brad Pitt as like the stoner couch potato is incredible. Like you've got so many choices that all come together and make like such a perfect little movie. Because it's kind of
Christopher Walken.
Christopher Walken is the Sicilian mob boss. Holy shit. Like
that scene, that scene, like where he talks about
about the Sicilians and who they were spawned by.
And he just like the way he plays it off in that scene is like perfect. It's so perfect.
And you've got again Jimmy Gandolfini as the fucking enforcer of the mob. I mean, it's just, and this is really early. Like for a lot of these, again, it's an early Tarantino script. It's an early, in a lot of these people's careers. But like, I don't know. There's just so much to love about this movie, and I think it's right. He made this right after Last Boy Scout, and Last Boy Scout was it was a huge box office movie. Last Boy Scout was fucking massive. Bruce Willis and Damon Wayans in like 1991 or whatever. And that had a lot of witty dialogue and fast quips and stuff. And so I guess that somebody felt that Tony Scott was able to do this material, and he by God, he did. There is an like an unrated or like an extended cut of this movie that I recommend everybody watch. And it's not talked about because, again, it's not directed by Tarantino, so it's not in his thing. But every time they release a box set with Tarantino movies, this movie is in it, basically. This is because it's part of the Tarantino verse. It's not as explicit about it because, again, the branding hadn't been worked out and the art for like the cigarettes or whatever the fuck, red apples or whatever, like that stuff hadn't been worked out yet, but like it's in the verse. And it's interesting to, like you were saying, to read interviews with him and to watch him talk about this stuff is like, he was absolutely trying to set up a fucking movie universe. It was like him and Kevin Smith at the time. Like Kevin Smith did it, but it was an interesting, it was like a new time for cinema that like you've got these like younger guys who are younger than the Scorseses and the Coppolas and like, all the movie brats that we were talking about. And they're able to take it a step further and get more meta with it and make movies about loving movies and not just like, it's so cool. And so
it's super cool.
I love this movie.
What I love, so like you're saying, this is a Tarantino, like the script is Tarantino, totally.
100%, yeah.
And there's so many like the things, like I think it's the James Gandolfini character goes off on a rant about how much he loves Apocalypse Now.
Oh,
I believe it's him. That's when you know it's a Tarantino, when there's these weird asides.
Yeah.
But like when you're a cinephile, you're like, I really fucking like that we talked about randomly in this gangster movie, talked about Apocalypse Now, because I love Apocalypse Now, and that just kind of makes this thing feel more rich because like sometimes you're out in life and then people like, I just saw the movie Apocalypse Now again and it was amazing. Right. I think it's beyond it. It's like one of the greatest films ever, it's just stuff like that. And like, the Sicilian, oh my God,
that scene is incredible.
That whole scene, and then he fucking kills him, and then he says like, I haven't killed someone in like 15 years or something like that.
I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, he says something like that. It's great. And that's the Tarantino stuff.
Yeah.
Or there's these monologues and these asides and these great side characters. Like the Gary Oldman character is like one of the best characters I can think of.
Yeah.
He's in
what
there for
a character.
Like a minute, and he's just like unbelievable, like pure character. Yeah,
I'm trying to get his name. Drexel.
Drexel.
Yeah.
The drug dealer.
Like you say Drexel, you instantly you get an image in your head, and you're just like, oh.
Yeah, the dreads and like like the gold teeth and shit.
Motherfucker.
And when he writes the script, he's so descriptive that he laid it all out there.
Yeah,
the entire character, he put it in.
He did all the work. Yeah.
It's really something to see, like all the stuff he was trying to do, and when you really see the big picture, and you see Jackie Brown, you see Pulp Fiction, you see Reservoir Dogs, and like this film, it's all kind of feels like one thing, one mind.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Yeah. And like you were saying, like it's interesting. Like at this time, like we had these movies. And we had these directors, like Linklater was coming up as well, and like movies where people, I mean, Tarantino is always working, at least at this point, within the gangster genre, but like the gangsters are talking about like normal day, everyday shit.
Yeah.
And like, again, Clerks is another one where it's literally just fucking nerds talking about nerd stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like very, like nowadays we take it for granted. because it's everywhere. But like 25, 30 years ago,
that shit wasn't cool.
It wasn't. It was very unsexy. It was very not cool.
Dude, 25 years ago, you're gonna like if you walked in. Okay, guys, so I got this movie idea about like I work at a convenience store, and me and my friend we talk about Star Wars.
Okay, and what happens? Like that's the meeting.
Oh yeah, by the way, I'm a comedian.
Yeah,
like that's exactly. And it's like, okay, get the fuck out of here. But that movie is like really, really, really good and really successful. And yeah, it was like kind of for a long time, it was not cool to like be really into this stuff. Is people say like, okay, you're really into like movies and shit. Okay, whatever. You're really into Star Wars. Okay, I watched that as a kid, but whatever.
Like unless we're talking like on a Roger Ebert level of discourse, and we're like, well, I really thought that.
And you work for a newspaper. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like, okay, work for a newspaper, or
exactly.
Go write a book, and
you could be a scholar about it, but like as a fan, you know, what's kind of your place? And it's cool that this movie in particular, True Romance, the lead character is just a movie fan. Like there's, you know, when you write a character, it's like, what are a couple things that define him? He's a movie fan.
Yeah.
And it's like, what a boring character. But then you put him through all of these insane, larger than life scenarios. Yeah. And it's just a really cool idea. And again, I think, obviously, it's talked about that the script is so strong, but I also think the direction is really strong because, again, you could have given this to some other fucking guy who was just making movies for the studios, and it would have been probably diluted and less interesting.
They would have. Like, yeah, you need someone like him, or like, I mean, he would never do it, but like a guy like Clint Eastwood, someone who's like, okay, I'm dedicated to the script. I will just do
that. Would be interesting. That would be very interesting because I mean, Clint Eastwood's not very stylish. Is the thing, like he doesn't really make too many crazy choices. Tony Scott is all about the fucking like, let me give you the fucking upside down Dutch angle and fucking do the colors and everything. So I think it's like a good marriage when this happens. And of course, it gets overshadowed by Pulp Fiction and all that stuff. But it's a really great film on its own. Yeah,
it's a great film. Cool. All right. So my number 36 is Hitchcock film North by Northwest.
I've heard of it.
1959. North by Northwest is one of my probably I feel like the most entertaining for me of all of his films. Mm-hmm. This is. It almost kind of feels like it. Like if he were to do a James Bond movie, it would feel a lot like this. If it were have ever to happen. So again, very simple setup. This guy is so funny. Like when you think about like the actual setup of this film.
Stupid.
It's so stupid. Like he's literally like in this this hotel or something. He's at a meeting and he's just like, oh hey or whatever. And it's like, oh, was that call for me? Oh, whoops, it's not for me. Then they think you're the guy, and then these people think you're a spy, and they're gonna try and kill you. And that's it. And we're just taking off on this huge adventure. And I really want to give credit to the writer, this guy, Ernest Lehman or Leham. Mm-hmm. This guy, so really what this film is a setup and then a bunch of ideas that he had that were really, that Hitchcock had that are really, really good. Mm-hmm. But that's not a film. That's just ideas. Mm-hmm. He had to make this into an actual story. And the story is really good. What they figured out with this, because like, you know, again, Hitchcock knew I want to do this thing where they're on Mount or whatever, like the place at the end.
Yeah, he's like Mount Rushmore, right?
Rushmore, yeah. He knew he wanted to do the Mount Rushmore scene. He knew he wanted to do the crop duster scene. He knew the setup.
See, the more you say it, the more like stupid 50s spy movie this sounds like. Yeah, right. It's just like all this random shit. Yeah.
But then this guy like has to make a story out of it, and they did a really good job, I think. And again, he hits those moments so well, so fucking well. That crop duster scene is unbelievably cool.
Yeah.
Just like for this time, that's, you know, like I'll talk about a moment later, like that's another practical effect kind of thing that they did in another film, but it's just the equivalent of, you know, I don't know, to use Tenet as an example, running the plane into
basically, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's still even like the magic of it is removed by about 60 years at this point, but it's still like it's a really like well I mean everything Hitchcock did obviously is masterful, but like it's a really well kind of planned out scene. It's just really
Oh, it's
it's
so
just
brilliant. Yeah.
so you can't say like, yeah, okay, maybe the special effects or whatever, you know, like we could watch Tenet on IMAX and it's fucking they're blowing up shit, but like something about the craft of it is just as good as anything that could come out today.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
because like, again, like I said, he knew exactly how he wanted to play that scene, right? He knew guy shows up, there's a guy across the street, and then the suspense is like, okay, is this guy across the street, is he the guy I need to be looking out for? But then he's not. He gets on the bus and he leaves.
Mhm.
And then you're just out there and then a fucking plane comes at you.
Yeah. Which again sounds very Scooby-Doo and it sounds very silly, but for whatever reason, like you said, like it just the way that the whole narrative is kind of strung together and the way that it's kind of, I mean, it's humorous, but like it's played straight. It's it works for some reason.
It works, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is totally like if he was gonna like if you just put James Bond in this and if you like change the setup a little bit, this is his Bond film.
Yeah.
100%.
That's a good way to put it. I never thought about it that way. In fact, I'm gonna rewatch this because I've been meaning to rewatch some of the Hitchcock movies, and I have like the box set over there, and this is one that I've been meaning to rewatch. I never thought about like seeing it through the prism of like an early James Bond movie.
Mm-hmm. It's really fun. Like, and there's some really interesting moments. One of my favorites is like, so they try to kill him by making him drink, and then they put him in a car and just send him off. And then like there's a scene where he's like fucked up and he barely lives, and then like so then he gets arraigned the next day for a DUI. And then he's on this conversation with his mom. He's like, no, mom, no, they didn't give me a chaser. God damn it. Like, blah, blah, blah.
I'm not a bitch.
They're trying to kill me. Don't you understand? No one believes me. God, this movie, this is like, for me, the most entertaining Hitchcock film. It's just so fun.
Yeah.
It's
it's
just got all these really big, cool set pieces. And the directing is really good, and he just put in a lot of his best ideas, I think, went into this film.
And it's fun, and they're having fun with it, and it's not like because I think honestly, it's like North by Northwest, Rear Window, like Vertigo are kind of like the ones that like keep being like picked as like the best ones, yeah. But like they, like Vertigo is kind of I think believed to be the best one, but. But they're doing very different things. Like Vertigo is more cerebral and it's more kind of psychological, and this movie is just pure, just fucking. It's like throwing shit at a wall to a certain extent, but it's just done. But it's done at such a high level of just like expert craftsman. Yeah, it's hard to not. I don't know. It's just a really good fucking movie.
It's hard to not just like love what's happening.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's just like
because again, like the Roger Eberts could come in and be like, yes, but actually the complexity and the depth of the whatever is. It's like, is that all? Like sometimes like a good movie is just a good movie. So I don't know.
Yeah, sometimes I just want to get that feeling of like not knowing what's going to happen and seeing a fucking crop duster fly past this guy's head and just like never forget that ever in my life.
Exactly. And the audiences, shit their pants forever. That movie.
Yeah, good stuff. So, that's my number 36, North by Northwest.
Cool. All right. Well, then my number 36, we're sort of adjacent, sticking to the Tarantino milieu, as they say. My number 36 is Robert Rodriguez's Desperado. Mm-hmm. And I can't think of a movie that more encapsulates like my particular brand of like action that I want to see than this. It's just so it's basically like John Woo by way of like Mexico. I don't know how else to describe it. It is balls to the walls. It's got so I like the efficiency in this movie. That's what there's other movies that are like there's a John Woo movie, but those usually go on for like 2 hours, and there's a love interest, and there's more complexity sort of before we get to the shootouts. This movie is pretty much all shootouts, and it's a very simple premise. It's the mariachi from the first mariachi movie that nobody saw because that movie was made on like a literally no money in Mexico, and it did well in Mexico, and like some people saw it in America. But then again, Miramax comes in and with the help of Tarantino, and they finally give Robert Rodriguez, and he's done they did an anthology movie together, 4 Rooms, where it was him and Tarantino and a couple other directors. They each directed scenes with Tim Roth as the lead character. And the best scenes from that movie were the Rodriguez and the Tarantino scenes. And in the Rodriguez scene, it was basically like a proto version of Spy Kids. It was like, so Tim Roth is a bellboy and he goes around, and Antonio Banderas is a fucking spy or some shit, and he's getting ready to, he's getting ready to leave the room, and he's like, and he's got his wife with him, and he's like trying to tell Tim Roth like what to do. I don't remember exactly what it is, but like Rodriguez has been kind of working his way up through Hollywood, and then they just give him, I guess, enough money to make this movie, and it's a true, all of his stylistic sensibilities come out in this movie, and there's just gunfight after gunfight. There's scenes where the Cuchillo, the fucking Danny Trejo character, just fucking throwing knives at this guy, and he's got knives coming all out, like he's just bleeding out of every possible fucking orifice. There's that great scene where he's limping, and then he goes up against the wall, and then it's like a tracking shot, and then he's just like smearing blood across this wall because he's bleeding so hard. And there's just so much to love about this movie. There's a Tarantino scene in this movie where he walks in and he tells, like, it's like a 5-minute non sequitur where Tarantino himself is in the scene, and he's just telling a joke about pissing all over the bartender or whatever. And I believe Steve Buscemi's in that scene too. I mean, there's just so many great moments in this film, but in particular the action is over the top. It's like guys with rocket launcher, like guys with guitar cases that are rocket launchers. And there's that scene in the fucking bar with like Cheech is behind the bar, and then like some shit starts, and he's got he's dual wielding pistols, and literally John Woo just jumping all over the place and shoot dodging and diving in midair. And there's a guy, like I remember a guy has him pinned down, and he shoots the ceiling fan. The ceiling fan comes down and knocks the guy out. I mean, there's just all of these crazy creative things in this movie. Salma Hayek makes her debut in this movie and just is instantly just, I mean, you just have to look at her basically and say like, yeah, she's going to be a movie star. And I mean, granted, it sucks that she gets her start in a Miramax movie, because then that starts a relationship with Harvey Weinstein, and we know how that ended. But, whatever, I guess she got her Oscar. But, it is just such a perfect little movie. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It's only about, it's like a little more than an hour and a half, I think. And it's just such a tight story. It's just like this guy who ends up in this town, and he's just trying to fucking figure out, I guess, where he's going. And he just ends up getting involved with all of the degenerates and just shooting everybody up. Yeah,
this sounds definitely like a Lucian movie, big time.
Have you not seen Desperado?
I've not seen it yet. I need to like see a bunch
If you see it, you'll understand everything I'm just talking about. It's got, I mean, again, you just got to watch the scene with Tarantino where he tells that joke in the bar with Steve Buscemi, and you understand everything I'm talking about. It is half a Tarantino movie, and it is half a John Woo movie, and it's like the fucking tequila mix of Robert Rodriguez. It's so then you haven't seen the scene. Oh my God, there's this incredible scene. So they have sex, spoiler alert. And then in the morning after, Salma Hayek is playing a guitar and she's singing, and it's this beautiful scene. She has her eyes closed, and he's like watching her sing, and she's so beautiful. And then he sees these shadows behind the curtains of like their hotel room moving, and he's tracking them, and she's singing. She's got her eyes closed. She doesn't know what's going on. And the only soundtrack is her singing. And it's really tense because you can tell these are hitmen that are trying to kill them, and he's got his guns out, and he's basically tracking them. And she's in front of him. He's tracking them. He's tracking these shadows, and they end up directly behind her. So he has to point both of his guns. He ends up pointing them at her head because the hitmen are behind her. And then he has to like knock, and he just wake her up, fucking throws her to the bed, shoots the guys. There's fucking explosions everywhere. I mean, this movie is incredible. It is. Yeah. It's not just a Lucian movie. It is the reason that Robert Rodriguez still has a career in Hollywood, as far as I'm concerned. This movie was fucking huge when it came out. I remember. I would remember when it came out. Obviously, I was too young, but like, it had a life on DVD and everything afterwards. And again, he gets to make right after this. He makes big Miramax movies. He made The Faculty, which was shitty. But he made immediately after this, he makes From Dusk Till Dawn. The Tarantino partnership continues.
Yeah, the other half and half movie. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So it's just, you have to see this movie. It's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like because I remember seeing like commercials for it was really Once Upon a Time in Mexico where I feel like they do some similar stuff
Well, Once Upon a Time in Mexico
to
is a sequel
this.
to this.
Yeah, but
Uh,
like the guitar gun or like the guitar like
yeah.
he like loads of guitar. Like I remember seeing that in a commercial
Yeah.
and be like,
Well,
what?
it's because it's a trilogy. It's his Mexico trilogy, and it's all the same characters. But Once Upon a Time in Mexico, in my opinion, suffers from that. Like, it's the part 3, and they're just trying to do too much. It's like the Spider-Man 3 kind of, where he's given a little more money. Like at this point, he is Robert Rodriguez, right? So he's given a lot more money, and he's able to make it bigger. And it's about like this coup, and he's got Willem Dafoe. I think it's Willem Dafoe, isn't it? And Johnny Depp, and he just rounds it out with all these other A-listers, and it just gets a little too much. Desperado is like the perfect middle ground of like not too much, not too little.
Yeah.
Again, you've got Danny Trejo, you've got Steve Buscemi, you've got all of these great character, Cheech Marin. You've got all these great character actors, like these bit parts. And yeah, it's just a rip-roaring good time.
Yeah, I'll have to check those out. I haven't seen enough of his films, like the films that made him.
Yeah. This movie, you watch this with someone that you just want to have like a good time with. It's so entertaining. It is so good. It's so great. I can't say enough good things about Desperado. And Desperado is one of those movies that like when I saw it, I was like, obviously in my mind as a kid, I'm like, I'll never be able to make movies because movies they come out of this magic factory, and I'm not there because I was in Romania at the time, and I was like, whatever. But like, if I could make movies, like this is the type of movie I would want to see forever. And honestly, we haven't seen. I mean, something that is just this blatantly Hong Kong action, I haven't seen in a while. So
yeah, it kind of died out. That movement died out. In sort of like the 90s, early 2000s, because again, like we said, the John Woo stuff and the John Woo doing who was that? Mission Impossible 2.
Yeah. That was the jumping the shark moment. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it was really. I think the problem was that. Well, first off, I think he was like, "Fuck this," on one level.
Yeah.
And it just, I just don't think it could really. It just wasn't the right. Because I've heard like there's some bad stuff been coming out about what happened on that movie. Not bad, but like basically he was like, okay, I want to do this and this and this and this, and who was directing all the actors was Tom Cruise.
Of course he was. Yeah.
Which to me is like no, and Daddy Newton talked about this thing where Tom Cruise was mad at her, so he was like, okay, I'm gonna read your lines, you read my lines, and she was like, I don't want to do that. We're gonna do it. Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
That happened on that movie.
Yeah. I hate everything about what you just said.
No, for real. And so then what's his name? Like he's off in the corner, just like thinking about like, oh,
John Woo is just like, yeah, like how do I fucking meticulously,
because he probably, from what I've heard, like he didn't speak English well enough to like be able to communicate with you.
He never did, yeah.
So he was just like, okay, do this and this and this. It was probably an interpreter.
And Tom Cruise that movie was a Cruise Wagner production. This was like early in the life of that production company. So he was like, if this is gonna have my name all over it, like I'm gonna fucking.
Who's already a notorious, again, he's come up
control
in the news
freak,
now,
yeah,
yelling at people
exactly
on set. So yeah, he was like, okay, if this is my thing, I'm gonna go.
Yeah, no, that MI2 was gonna make my top 100 for sure because it came out at the right time for me, and that soundtrack, dude, with fucking Limp Bizkit and Metallica. Get out of here!
Oh my God.
Get out of here!
Like you can't be more 2000s than Limp Bizkit.
That's my
really
favorite
good.
shit.
Their
really version
good.
of the theme song is actually really
it's
good.
It's really fucking good.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. We could talk about that. Maybe at some other point, but the point is, I love Desperado. Everybody should watch Desperado because it is so goddamn entertaining.
Cool. All right, Desperado. So my number 35, blockbuster. I think a lot of people have heard of a movie called Jaws, 1975. Cool. So again, we talk about the simple premises.
This is the one about the giant octopus, right?
So the opening of this movie is really good. We see some teenagers. She goes skinny dipping,
Right.
and shark eats her, kills her. And so
from
then
from like a POV.
Yeah, we
Like
see
really,
underneath,
really,
like,
really fucking like the
pulling her
tension.
under, pulling her around.
Yeah.
And Spielberg talked about how he wanted to shoot the scene, and he was like, I want people to infer. I don't want people to really see a fucking big shark eat someone. It's almost worse to see a girl just like get pulled around and then pulled under.
Well, that was like the Corman way of doing it would be to just show that. And thankfully there is a string of these filmmakers who are like, what if we don't show everything?
Yeah.
Like Alien is just like, what if 2 hours of this movie is all in your head?
Yeah, and then like at the middle of the film, you see this thing pop out his stomach, and then 30 minutes later, you see a bigger thing eat people. Yeah. That's probably pretty scary, right? Yeah. So this film is a very interesting. So Spielberg, again, this is kind of what really kind of propelled him. He this is so crazy. So like he basically got his start. He decided one day that he was going to I think it was Paramount or something like that. He just broke into the he lied his way in. On Paramount. He like got like a fake ID or badge or something, and he just showed it to the guy and like, oh hey, and he literally took over an office in Paramount.
That sounds like a fake story, and I wouldn't believe it if it wasn't corroborated by so many people. Like I was recently watching stuff about like Coppola, and he was like, yeah, the reason that like I'm able to do Godfather shit is because Steven Spielberg got in at Paramount.
Yeah,
which is crazy.
He literally just broke in, and it would be like if you and me just like walked into Warner Brothers.
I just showed up to Warner Brothers,
and we just like we literally took an office. We took the office. Someone got fired or whatever, or they left, and we just took their office and we just started hanging out there.
Trust me, I'd love to.
and then like we peek our head out like, oh hey, by the way, I got the script. Like you want to see my script, right? Or whatever. And so then they just start hiring him to do.
Yeah, well he starts like directing stuff that like just corporate
television
stuff, like things, small things that they need to be done. He's like, oh, you need a director for that? Like, oh, no, it's fine. Like I'm the guy. I don't have a guy. I am the guy.
I'm the guy. I'll do it for you. And then they're like, okay. And then they like what he does. And so then they have him do Duel, this TV movie, which is fucking incredible.
I love Duel.
Incredible.
I love Duel. Yeah, really
and
like
then
it.
They set him up to do Jaws. And, there's problems with the shark and they're writing the script. But it is the perfect confluence of all these things. They get this brilliant script. And he has he knows what the vision of the film needs to be for this to work. Mm-hmm. And he's able to pull it off, and it becomes this huge blockbuster. And this is a horror movie, 100%. This is a horror movie. Like there's some art, like it's an adventure. It's a fucking horror movie about a shark eating people. Okay, and it's just like there's so many things about it too that kind of have become relevant again. This is another film that's become relevant again in our
again and again
COVID era.
Yeah,
where who's the villain of this film? Is it the shark? No, it's
the guy who doesn't close down the beach.
It's basically the people, because the people also don't want them to shut down the beach, because they are like, well, but I want to go swimming. Yeah. Does this sound familiar to anybody? And then some people get eaten by a fucking shark, and it's like, oh my god, how dare you not shut down the the beach, because people, I didn't know that people I was gonna get eaten by a shark. It's like, dude, didn't we tell you? And then they're sent off on this adventure to kill the shark. But it's so prescient because, like, they are the villain. The people of the town and the mayor who's the embodiment of this, this ideology.
Corporate kind of, Yeah.
And, you think, like, oh, well, no one would ever do that. No one would ever, like, if there's a shark, be like, you can't. We have to shut it down.
That's like a B movie premise. He's like, I know we're not going to shut down the beaches, and then shenanigans ensue.
Yeah, and then we learn in real life it's not a B movie premise.
Exactly.
It is a real life premise because it's such a smart thing too, because that's an intrinsic thing. We all in life, we always make trade-offs, right? How much risk is too much risk, and when people can't see what they're risking, when they don't understand it, they're like, well, yeah, I can risk getting eaten by a shark. Like, what's going to happen? Oh, well, your son got eaten by a shark. And now
Right.
it's like, okay, this is a real thing. This is a
Mhm.
real thing, and now we have to use resources to stop it. Yeah, this is a perfect film. And again, like the film itself is like so good.
Yeah.
So good, so well written, so many beautiful moments. You know, just
Very-
like even small stuff, like this shot of like they're out at night and then you see the star.
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
shooting
Well,
star.
it's the other thing that works that makes this movie what it is the bromance, is the three guys on a boat aspect of it. That I think is another reason that it endured for so long, is that you get into like, okay, we have the premise, we have the setup, there's a shark, and now we're going to hang out with these guys and they're just going to be at sea for the majority of this movie. And like, what the fuck are they going to do? And then, like, what do you do when you're, in confinement with people? Like, you tell stories and you're hanging out. And there is an element of that in this movie that, like we just talked about how we like to see in Tarantino movies. We like to see the gangsters talk about burgers, every once in a while. We like to, when these guys are telling stories to each other, it's just fun to get into those characters. And then you care, obviously, when one of them dies, you care a lot more. Like, it just does, like, you're right. Like, this movie is kind of perfect in that it just does. I mean, obviously the script has to provide for all of these things to happen, but like, it just set up, it's so smart in the way that it kind of just does all these things that you expect effortlessly and you don't think about them.
You don't think about them.
Yeah.
Yeah, Aaron had a comment. It sounds like COVID 2020.
Oh, well, we were trying to be subtle about it.
I mean, like that's really what it is. It's exactly the same thing. Oh well, I'm not gonna get COVID. It's fine. Like don't shut down the restaurant. Oh my God, how dare you? My son got COVID because he was out licking the freaking knobs at the goddamn Safeway. It's like, well, dude, we told you.
Yeah. Yeah, so in real life, we just need a Roy Scheider and Richard Dreyfuss and Robert Shaw to come along and help us, right?
Those are basically the scientists. The scientists who figure.
The scientists are making the vaccine. Yeah,
how to
sure.
make the vaccine. Yeah, yeah, pretty much. So yeah, I mean, I love Jaws. It's a great movie. And again, like I even like Jaws is so good. I like the shitty ripoff B movie, the actual B movie version of Jaws, like Deep Blue Sea. With Samuel Jackson.
Oh,
yeah.
You can't not love that. That's a yeah. We were talking about Rennie Harlan last week. He's the guy who took over Die Hard after John McTiernan. Those are the types of shitty movies that he was making in the 90s. Yeah, Deep Blue Sea. I mean, they were. That's such a B movie. That's such a great pull because it's like
a B movie.
It's a B movie
God.
that like gets released in theaters for some reason, and then you realize like this should
because
never.
Of the names. The names were huge.
They were right, but like it's just it was that and like Anaconda at the time, if you remember, because they had fucking J-Lo and John Voight and a fucking Ice Cube. Like,
Ice Cube, yeah. I mean, also Owen Wilson was in that movie. Owen Wilson's in that movie.
But those movies should never happen. Those movies should never come out in theaters. And we've learned the lesson now for these like 80-minute pieces of shit on Hulu that keep coming out. But yeah, Jaws is just a miracle in that it is such a B movie premise that turns out to obviously not be a B movie premise, and it's actually just like a really well made movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Crazy.
I love Jaws. Jaws is just like Jaws is life.
Jaws is life, yeah, and it will continue to be life. People are going to continue, and again, it's like a One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest thing. It's just like it's not you can't really point at it. I mean, you can, I guess, but like you're not going to point at it and be like, that's a 70s movie. Like they do effects better now. It's like that's not the point. Like it's again, it's the craft. It's the kind of you're just so into this story immediately. You watch 5 minutes of it on TV. It's hard not to watch the rest of the thing. So
I don't know if I've ever seen a better shark movie. Like
shark movie? No.
Right? Like even the way the shark looks. Like they've done CGI sharks. They look fucking fake. They look bad.
Dude, I watched that piece of shit that came out last year, The Meg, with Jason Statham. Holy shit! Have you seen that fucking thing?
I've seen it, but like I've seen it.
It's worse than you could imagine. Oh, I mean, like there's not like there isn't a part of me that loves the idea that in the third act, Jason Statham literally like punches a shark underwater, or like a megalodon, like that. I'm obviously attracted to that, but like it's so shitty.
Yeah. Also, just like you got again Captain Britain, the swimmer who's a silver medalist.
Yeah.
Boy, I'm gonna swim and take out this shark. Like him swimming with it like that. I'm kind of really down for that premise.
Yeah, but then the Chinese special effects come in and everything is just a CGI fucking abortion, and it's just so bad.
Yeah, and just like comparing that with this movie, I mean those are basically the same movie. It's the same movie. It's just a different setup for how you have the massive shark. It's just how do you go bigger than Jaws? Make the shark bigger is what some people think.
That's what not it, Chief. No.
That's what they thought. They thought, I'll make the shark bigger. That's what they thought would sell it.
Jaws works the same reason that Alien works. It's the tension, it's the characters, it's the camaraderie, and it's the situations,
Yeah, Aaron says they'll never make a shark movie than Jaws. All the build-up before we see the shark was beautiful.
Exactly. Yeah. It's the tension and the build-up. And the shark looks good when we see the shark. But he was so smart that he used it sparingly. So the shark looked good. It looks better than, again, even like Deep Blue Sea when they do the CGI. Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah. No.
They did use a practical shark in like some scenes. That was good too.
Yeah.
I think there's even like a scene where it bites off, what's his name's arm.
Yeah. I remember that.
That was pretty good. But that was a practical. That was a real thing. That was a real thing. It wasn't some CGI head thing.
But again, it doesn't. That takes the B movie premise and it just fucking just rides it as a B movie.
It rides it as a B movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is probably one of the rare B movies that ascended itself basically.
That's it's in spite of everything. No, that's why people still talk about Jaws, is that this movie should not work, or it should just not be as revered as it is. Like it shouldn't be as good as it is.
Yeah, it should not have worked as well as it like there are literally thousands of Jaws the movie out there that exists, and they're like Aaron, like they did this review of this movie Elves, this horror movie Jesus. Elves.
Yeah.
And then it was just like it was a total like the premise based on the premise of what it was selling, like killer elves. Like Santa's elves.
Sure. Yeah.
But based on that, it was just a piece of shit. Like they didn't even do the B movie premise right?
Yeah.
Like there's just so many of these bad B movie premises but this totally goes above and beyond what it should have been. Really.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a reason that Spielberg is fucking Spielberg, is because people are able to watch this movie and they're like, on paper, this is a Roger Corman movie that like it doesn't work, but like, why is it so good? And then you kind of realize that like some of the people at the helm knew what they were doing.
Exactly. You got the master directing it. You got really great writing, great actors,
and you got that score. You've got that John Williams score. Yeah.
The score had a lot to do with it too.
Yeah.
But absolutely, the I think the actors deserve a lot of, like, Richard Dreyfuss is great.
Yes. Roy Scheider is one of the absolute fucking greats, dude. Yeah.
Yeah, he is absolutely on his A game in this movie.
Yeah.
This is the other guy. So they reviewed it. James and Aaron reviewed Elves.
That's funny.
That movie.
That's so funny.
And actually James was the one that was like, "Oh, let's watch this movie," because he looked at the box. The box looks cool. The box cover art. It's like an elf with like knives and shit. And
at some point, we have to talk about like cover arts and how like selling a movie oftentimes is just better than the movie itself. Yeah. Like especially for these like low rent, straight to DVD dumpster fires. Like it's an art,
dude. Like the poster for Jaws, right?
Yeah,
one of the greatest posters of all time.
Yeah.
Just True. Like you see the woman and you see the shark coming, and it's like a.
But it looks like a Roger Corman fucking poster. Like it looks like Piranha or something. Like it just looks like one of those movies. And you watch it, and everybody shits their pants in the theaters because it's so intense. Yeah, and they're not using. They wanted to come see a beautiful woman get ripped in half. What they got was this like camaraderie, this like meditative thing almost, and they were
it's a character study about what happens when we're hit by natural disasters. And then there's also some people getting eaten by sharks, and then the shark blows up. They pay us off. They pay us off 100%. And Roy Scheider fights one-on-one with the shark.
Yeah.
That's another reason why this movie works so well. We get exactly what we came for, but we get a better story than what we expected.
Yeah.
He fights the shark. The shark eats that fucking thing. He blows it up. Got that great one-liner. and he blows up the shark, and boom, that's it. Jaws.
Yeah, I gotta see. They just recently put out a 4K Blu-ray of this, and I gotta see that because I haven't seen Jaws in a minute, so I gotta watch that 4K. But again, it's like I own all of the Spielberg movies, including Duel. Like I just have all of them, and it is going to be a colossal pain in my ass to upgrade the entire Spielberg catalog to 4K now that they keep coming out. But Jaws is one that I think I should invest in.
For sure, yeah. There's a lot of his are gonna look good. I recently watched. Did another review on the channel for War of the Worlds on 4K. It's beautiful.
I love that film. Yeah, well, I saw. I picked up Saving Private Ryan like the day that came out on 4K Blu-ray, and it blew my fucking mind how good that movie looks. Yeah.
I mean, he shoots everything on 35 at least.
Yeah.
So all his films, they look filmic. You know, it's got that quality.
Yeah, and the transfer is really good too.
The transfers are really good. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So that's my number 35, Jaws.
Jaws. Good shit. All right. Well, my number 35, and this is a movie that I don't know if there's a 4K Blu-ray of it, but I would love to see this movie in 4K. Absolutely one of my favorite movies, A Clockwork Orange by Stanley Kubrick. And why do you think I love this movie so much? What?
I mean, is it the degenerate sex or is it like the sci-fi premise?
Ding 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 ding. So the main character of this movie is just a irreprehensible piece of garbage. Is just him and his entire crew is just this unbelievable human stain. Right?
Yes,
it's just and I love that, and I love that again. Especially for when this movie was made in the 70s. I mean, Kubrick, like he's kind of a fucking darling, right? I mean, he does all of these great kind of like we were talking about his Hollywood career, like Paths of Glory was like this great contemplative thing, but it was done through the studio system, so there wasn't like a whole lot of gore or anything. Then you've got, Spartacus. You've got 2001, and these are great, like, general audience movies. Dr. Strangelove, it, like, blows a lot of people's minds. And then at some point in the 70s, he just fucking goes for it. And Clockwork Orange is, I think, if I remember correctly, I think it follows, like, Barry Lyndon, right? I think it's his first, like, hard R, like, I don't give a fuck kind of a thing. It's right before The Shining comes out. And, I just love this movie. So it follows Alex around and his group of the degenerates, and this movie his droogs, yes, my little droogies, and the way that it's written, obviously it's adapted from the novel, so like some of the in-world kind of vocabulary is there, and it's really interesting, and the production design, like in that milk bar that they go to, is just so fucking fascinating, and it's all just weird, it's all psychosexual stuff. It's all stuff that I'm into. Everything is like the shape of a woman or the shape of a dick or whatever. And they're like literally drinking like milk from like this titty, and it's it's insane. It's crazy. And I love the those women that come up to him in the bar and they're like sucking on lollipops, and he's just like, how'd you fancy the old in out, eh? It's just fucking, it's just so weird.
And their costumes, right? Their costumes were instantly iconic.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and the makeup with the eyelashes and stuff, and yeah, and Malcolm McDowell is like an unsung hero of this era, in my opinion. Like this movie Caligula, and he does a couple other like fucking bizarre movies in the 70s, just like really weird sexual stuff. And then the whole kind of beginning of the movie, like it just shows them beating up on innocent people and old people, and it culminates with kind of the ransacking and like kind of the pillage and rape of this man's house and his wife. And there's like this really kind of interesting, like long take of them just like manhandling this woman and just ripping her clothes off and stuff. And it's really like, that's kind of the point where like it puts you over the edge. You're like, all right, like I can't possibly hate these people more. Right. And then it goes through the process of rehabilitating this character. And it's just so interesting because like, you wouldn't think that it's possible. And like, certainly I think as an audience member, you don't necessarily ever go fully to his side. But well, you kind of feel bad for him because then, he gets beat up by his old crew members, and like
they become cops. That's like so perfect. They become cops and they start kicking his ass.
They beat his ass.
Yeah,
it's amazing. It's but it's got a lot of that Kubrick isms. Like it's got that like stage play scene that almost like Alcoholics Anonymous, but for like degenerates scene, where it's like set to the there's like a curtain. I don't remember exactly. Some of the overall like themes get lost on me in this movie because I'm so captivated by, again, the production design, the language that they use, all of the intense violence. And again, this is another movie that the censors were like, we're not putting this fucking thing out, and Kubrick was like, yeah, you will. And so there was a lot of back and forth with the MPAA and some of the other agencies. And I always favor those movies that like have a rough time of it, because there's a lot of movies that come out that are just pure extreme cinema. And I don't get me wrong, we'll talk about some of that stuff later, but like I love extreme cinema, but like I like it when big name directors go out on a limb and they do stuff like this. And certainly Clockwork Orange is a tale about, just violent. Again, it's like another violence and desensitization to violence type of a thing. And they literally have to desensitize this motherfucker to violence. They strap him in and they keep his eyes open, and it's really harrowing stuff. And so, yeah, I mean, it's not a mystery why I love this movie so much, but I think, again, Kubrick's genius with the framing and the kind of the production design and the sets. I would love to see this movie in 4K and to really kind of get that sense. I'd like to see it on the big screen eventually. I've seen this movie a hell of a lot of times on DVD and Blu-ray, but I'd love to see it on the big screen at some point.
This movie is masterful. This movie, like, there's so much to like about it. Like you're saying, the production design, the costumes, the feel of it, the acting's amazing. And this is actually, I believe, this is basically probably one of the during this era, right? Like once he'd gone to England and he was living there, and he was basically he would spend whatever amount of time, like 3 years on a project, and then do it. This was like the fastest film he shot. Like,
okay, I was wrong. This is after 2001. This is not after Barry Lyndon. Barry Lyndon is after this. He follows up 2001 with this movie. This movie is 1971. It is really fucking early on.
With this degenerate insanity.
It's insane. It's insane that this movie got made,
This movie is brutal. Wow. This movie is brutal.
Yeah.
And, like, you could see why. Like, you could see, like, why they would be like, oh, we can't show this.
Yeah.
Like, they're going to fucking do this. They're going to go out in the street and they're going to see gangs of people wearing these top hats and these canes.
It's funny, too, because we keep talking about, like, the new Hollywood stuff. Like, we talked about Bonnie and Clyde. Like, right around that time, Bonnie and Clyde, Wild Bunch, some of those movies, Easy Rider come out. Like, the floodgates are open and we can make R-rated movies now properly. It's crazy to me that Kubrick is able to come out immediately in 1971 and just be like, I'm just going to show you a 5-minute long take of them beating this black man inside of an abandoned theater. Yeah. It's fucking crazy.
Yeah, the scene with I'm singing in the rain while he's kicking this guy's ass and about to rape his wife. Like, that's one of the greatest scenes of all time.
It is.
It's so insane.
And that was a big thing. It's just like, Warner Brothers, you're just gonna let them fucking use Singing in the Rain? Like, you're just gonna let this like, what does that tell our, like, we're trying to create like a fucking safe kind of environment where these movies exist, and now you're gonna pull them into this degeneracy like that? No.
Yeah, but they let him do it, and it's I feel like this was the one film where Kubrick really got the right actor for him. Like, the performance was always exactly what he wanted.
Yeah, I think so.
And it was just like the perfect
so like somebody whose insanity matched his insanity as a director. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just it's an amazing performance. It's a crazy film.
It's a crazy
film. And again, the theme is just like, there are these disgusting, depraved, insane people. Like, this dude is the scum of the universe.
Yeah.
But society tries to completely brainwash him out of it, and it just can't do that.
Yeah. You'll just, some people are just broken. I think you could take that away from this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, and then at the end he's just like, I was cured all right. When they
I was cured all right.
And he just could go right back into the degeneracy. It's coming back, guns blazing.
Yeah, I love. There's so much to love about this movie, but I just love the extremity of it.
Yeah,
and just coming out like in such a polished state, because again, it's not like you can't see smut if you want to see smut, but like somebody who's really smart somebody who just makes 2001 that fundamentally changes fucking movies forever.
Yes,
make something like this. It's really cool to me.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is, and it's just you just gotta love Kubrick just as an
Like
artist.
his passion projects were obviously like some of the best work he's ever done. Like the string that he had in the 70s and 80s is just whoa. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All right, so my number 34 is Fight Club. David Fincher's Fight Club. This movie, again, this is another TV all-star. Like, you watch this at any point in the narrative, you're sucked in.
I have a story about that, actually, yeah.
Yeah, so I definitely feel like I saw this probably, like, I didn't see it in theaters. I probably saw it, like, on TV at some point and was just, taken in. It's just so, I don't know, there's just something about the acting is great. It's a very, like, again, this is a movie about a bunch of guys who kind of have midlife crises, and then they go around.
Well, they have like masculinity.
Whatever.
They have masculinity crises.
Yeah, well, a lot of them are like in their 30s or.
Yeah. It's kind of to the point where we're at almost, where it's just like, if we had like office jobs or whatever. Like I had that. I absolutely had that Fight Club moment a couple of years ago, and I was just like, the end goal of this is just another cubicle.
Yeah. Or even just like they call it the crisis of meaning. This is sort of like the I don't know what you would call it, but it's like the problem with certain people that you have all these things, but you're not really satisfied.
Yeah.
And why is that? What is the thing that's missing there for people that causes them to then do? In this film, it's like start a terrorist organization, basically. This film. The style, the directing, everything about it, the story, it's just so palpably strong and just everything you want. You can't look away. It's just so interesting. It's like the violence is good though too, and just Fincher really just kills it in this movie.
I can't. I'm gonna save a lot of my kind of just jerk off massive just tirade about how much I love this movie, because it's higher on my list, and we'll talk about it later. But I mean, this is one of those movies that, in my opinion, and this could be a shitty opinion and like a unresearched one, you could say, but like 1999 is like absolutely one of the greatest years for cinema, for the reason that like it ushered in the 21st century, obviously, but like the types of postmodern kind of disenfranchised, like the machine within the machine kind of type stuff. Like, so we had Fight Club, we had The Matrix, which was literally about that. We had, TV was going fucking crazy. We had The Sopranos, that is just like, what if gangsters, but like, family, like what if gangsters, but like divorced from all of the tropes, like, just meaning, finding the meaning within the genres and stuff like that. There's just so much to say about like the stuff that came out that year. And a lot of my favorite movies come out of that year, but Fight Club in particular, like I remember seeing it, my dad back in Romania, what he would do is he would get sunflower seeds and a beer and sit in front of the TV, and like whatever, like 8 o'clock every night on like one of the Romanian channels was like a movie. They would just pick a movie, and they had like the broadcast rights for in like all of Romania in like 2001 or whatever to show Fight Club. And it was like a big deal. And it was like the only place you can watch Fight Club is just fucking here, because like DVD rental stores not really a thing. VHSs maybe. So he sat his ass down, 8 o'clock p.m. Fight Club comes on TV, and mind you, in Romania, there's Europe, I should say, there's no censorship. They don't censor language. They don't censor anything because they don't need to. Because again, literally every movie that comes out is either G or you have to be at least 12, and there's like nothing past that. We don't give that's why I love cursing. Maybe that's why I'm attracted to it. But like, no one cares. It's just, it is what it is. It's not like over here where like, we can show you, somebody's eyeballs being gouged out, but you can't hear the F word.
Yeah.
It's weird stuff like that. So like, yeah, he sat his ass down, he watched Fight Club. I don't think I was there, or maybe I wasn't paying attention, but I remember he came to me, he was just like, I was like fucking what? I was like 12 years old. He was like, kid, you got to watch this movie, Fight Club. And I was like, okay, Dad. And then
that's hilarious.
Dude, it blew my fucking mind, because when you're that young, or maybe when you haven't seen that many movies, the Tyler Durden twist, you really don't see that. You really
don't see it coming.
You really it's impossible. Like your little brain is incapable of thinking in those terms because you haven't seen enough movies yet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
dude, I shit my fucking pants.
Yeah.
So for the longest time, I thought that Fight Club was like this ultimate exercise in the plot twist. I thought it was the greatest thing ever. Again, Sixth Sense also came out in 1999. I just thought like that was just a fucking pinnacle of movie making, as you could pull off a good twist. And then the more I rewatched the movie and I got into high school and college and I kept rewatching this movie, I got to see it in theaters. They put it out in like a re-release. And I got to really dig into how fucking brilliant and how smart the societal commentary is, and even the meta commentary. Again, we were just talking about Mank. He put the fucking cigarette burns in the corner in Mank, which is awesome. He did. It's so fun that he's so because
and they do a comment about that in this movie. He's a projectionist.
There's an entire scene about it in this movie with the cock, and they show you the dick at the end. I mean, everything is paid off. Everything in this movie is just, it is so self-contained. It is so perfect, and we'll talk about it more later. But like, to me, this is a 10 out of 10 fucking perfect movie. Yeah,
this movie is so. It's just like it just sucks you into it. It just sucks you into the world, and like Brad fucking Pitt. Okay, Brad Pitt is one of the great like superstar actors of all time in the entire history of cinema. This dude was born to fucking be on screen.
And to be in movies,
He was fucking born to be in movies. And like stuff like this, you really see it. Where just really the pure charismatic that oozes out of him, and you're just like, yeah, I'd fucking join that guy and be a terrorist or whatever.
Dude, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, and you really got to appreciate like the choices that he makes, because he's like the ultimate like one for them, one for me kind of A-lister. Like he'll do the big budget shit and he'll do the heartthrob romantic roles, but then he'll do stuff like Fight Club and he elevates those projects. Kind of like Leonardo DiCaprio started doing this, but you could hate him because he's more outspoken about the environment and he seems a little up his own ass and he's always like dating some fucking 19-year-old. It's like there's something you can say, but like Brad Pitt is like very consistent. Like he's very comfortable in his role as a movie star, and I feel like he's aware of the influence and the power that he has, and he's able to do stuff with like an Andrew Dominic and again, assassination of fucking Jesse James and killing them softly. And he has that great scene with James Gandolfini in that movie. And he gets it. He goes into the minutia. He just did Ad Astra with James Gray. Like he's the Tarantino movies. I mean, he is.
Oh yeah. I mean, when you think about where Tarantino was when he did Inglourious Bastards and what the budget, like that was right after whatever Grindhouse. That flopped.
Yeah, it flopped majorly.
And then he's like, yeah, I want to do a World War II movie where I kill Hitler. And it's like, the fuck? But Brad Pitt will be in it. And I'm going to get these other actors in it. And then they're like, okay, we'll give you $100 million. We'll let you do it.
He was like, well, I'm going to cast European actors in this. I'm going to cast, Melanie Laurent and Christoph Waltz and Michael Fassbender and, all these other guys. And they're like, who the fuck are these people? And lo and behold, everybody has an A-list career now. But like,
he's another guy who you can't fuck with when it comes to casting.
But like again, you're right. Like this is someone like Brad Pitt is able to elevate, but also Edward Norton in this movie. If Edward Norton was not a known quantity before this movie, holy shit! I mean,
just think about Edward Norton in the '90s. Oh my god, he just kills it, right? Yeah, he's in Primal Fear. Then he does American History X. Then he's in this movie.
Yeah.
Just kills the game over and over.
And it's like he's this intellectual kind of nerdy everyman opposed by this like fucking Adonis, sculpt from marble, ultra masculine guy. And there's so many great lines in there where he's just like, self-improvement is masturbation. And just there's like all these great lines that just comment on how fucking bullshit all of it is. And it's just we could talk about it, and we will talk about it more. But I fucking love Fight Club, dude.
Yeah, so that's we love this fucking movie.
Absolutely.
I feel like this is like the type of movie, right? That was like we saw it at the perfect time, the perfect age.
Yeah,
both like the plot twist really like hooked you in, but then like as you get older, you're like, whoa, this movie is about how I have to deal with things in my life over time.
Yeah, right. Well, and again, it's also when it's released. I mean, this movie would not, if it came in, it would not work in any other year, like in 1989, for example. Or
this movie also, I think you can't really do this movie anymore. to be honest.
No,
Because
no.
now when people think about this premise, a bunch of guys who are sort of unhappy with, they think of
It's
fucking people that are
toxic.
gonna,
Yeah.
not only that, but they think of people who are gonna kill people. Like the terrorism stuff at this time, again,
Right,
like,
blowing up corporations, fine. But nowadays, yeah,
well,
it's like
it's you can hit the punchline and people go, haha. Now it's like, even then again there was Timothy McVeigh, but like I don't think that, it was, I was just thinking about recently I watched True Lies, and they were
Oh,
thinking
Jesus.
about doing a, yeah, exactly. And they were thinking about doing a sequel, and then 9/11 they were like, dead, never again, never again.
Yeah.
Never again will they ever touch that premise, because
Yeah.
9/11 happened.
Yeah.
And then the palpability of what terrorism actually can do, and it can't just be a punchline anymore.
Yeah.
This movie,
Exactly.
I don't know if you could really do it,
No.
even in like 2000, even in 2000 and like
4 or something.
or whatever. Yeah, like people just would not be able to accept the premise of a bunch of dudes. And again, we get bogged down in like, oh, it's a bunch of white dudes blowing up shit. Like,
that's exactly it. That is
fucking know that would happen.
Yeah. And all of the fucking, I can see them now. The articles is like, the white masculine movie, and it's all white guys, and it's just, man.
But thankfully, thank God, this movie came at the right time, so it doesn't have to touch any of that bullshit.
Exactly.
It just floats over it.
Yeah.
And it's this beautiful artifact that
just exists.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for a lot of people, I mean, people that were like, listen, we're old as fuck. There's people that were born in 2000, 2001, 2002. This movie has always existed. Yeah. And so I think that can only be a net positive, I think.
Yeah. So Fight Club, and man, David Fincher is such a fucking great director.
Dude, like when he gets the thing, like when he really gets into a thing that he wants to do, I feel like there's very little people who can like execute on a premise
on that level,
on such an incredible, like we were just talking about again, Mank, and the minutia of like the Hollywood, like the mile a minute dialogue and the references to the execs and to 1930s Hollywood. I mean, unless you're really into that shit, there's no way anybody could make that movie that way that he made it. It's just so, with so many references and stuff. And Fight Club is just, it's his thing. It's really psychological too. The movie. So I mean, that's what I love about it.
I really think like him and Brad Pitt is just like a match made in heaven.
Yeah. Absolutely.
A really intellectual director with just one of the greatest actors ever.
Yeah.
And like,
the guy who's just willing to go there.
Yeah. In Seven, I think that, I don't know if Brad Pitt's ever looked more cinematic than the way they make him look in Seven. There's some shots you're like, that was a human being that was alive?
I know.
He looked like that?
Yeah. Well, it's like it's
Same
like
with this movie too. Same with this movie.
Well, it's like seeing any of the fucking guys in the in the 40s. You're like Cagney was real. Fucking Gary Cooper was real. Like it's like a lot of those like chiseled out of marble kind of perfect cinema faces. Yeah.
Love this movie. Love Fight Club, and we'll get to talk about it more, which I'm excited about.
We will. It'll take a while, but we'll get there.
Yeah. Cool.
Right. Awesome. Well, my number 30. We're on 34, right? Cool. My number 34 is Attica. Dog Day Afternoon, directed by the great Sidney Lumet. One of the kind of mentors of Al Pacino. Al Pacino is, I mean, it's not a secret if you've been watching any of these videos of ours. Al Pacino is my favorite actor of all time. And Dog Day Afternoon is kind of one of his signature roles, one of his signature movies. It's got some of the greatest moments. It's got, again, the Attica thing. It's got like when the dad sees him on the TV and stuff. Yeah, it's just so many fucking great moments in this movie. And it's kind of a simple premise. It's just these fucking, again, degenerates, or maybe they're not necessarily, they're actually not degenerates, but they just basically, they walk into a bank and they're just like, we're going to rob this bank now. And then the rest of the movie is just, how does that play out? Yeah. And this is the type of premise that like has been in movies forever and is still in movies. Like I remember, there was like a Spike Lee movie called Inside Man that was it was basically this, but it was like from the perspective. There was The Negotiator with fucking Kevin Spacey and Samuel Jackson. There's a lot of movie premises like this, but not one that like hits on the humanity kind of the bank robbers like this one does. In particular, John Cazale. When you learn kind of why they're doing it and kind of what the reasons, what he needs the money for and shit, it's just like,
right?
Wow, dude. Like, and listen, this is another one of those movies that like I saw it, when I was in high school, and then I kept revisiting it, and from trying to kind of understand it from like a craft perspective of like how this movie was put together, because it's another one of those and like engrossing kind of TV all-star movies where like if you catch any one of the scenes in this movie, you're just like, what the fuck is going on? What is this movie about? And you see the cops setting up the barriers outside, and there's like so many undertones, right? There's like obviously the John Cazale stuff, there's the cops and the kind of friction between the people, the civilians and the cops that are, there's the snipers across the roof and shit. And you're just kind of rooting for the bank robbers. They're not gonna make it out alive. Like, they're not gonna fucking survive it. But it just like turns into this like really sad kind of chamber piece where you're just like, shit, man. Like people make mistakes, huh?
People get desperate, right?
People get desperate. Yeah. And it's just one of the great Al Pacino roles and performances. This is at the time, so this is still in the mid to early 70s, where he was doing the subdued Pacino. He wasn't there yet. It was the Godfather era. There was a film he did before this called Bobby Deerfield, which is just basically hot people and cinematography and race cars and stuff. It's a Sidney Pollack film, actually. It's a really good film. But it's just like, we're gonna go to Italy and France and shoot these like great scenes, and we're gonna have Al Pacino in, and he's attractive, and we're gonna have like attractive German people that fall in love with him, and that was kind of the whole premise of that movie. But this is another one of those like intellectual performances. Like we talked about, one of the strengths of Pacino is you could just hang on his face, and he can tell you. He can tell you not only the whole story, but what he's thinking, like word for word what he's thinking just by looking at his face. And there's a lot of that in this movie, and I love that. And again, Sidney Lumet is fucking made like 50 movies at this point. He knows what the fuck he's doing, and it's just a great. It's just really engrossing, and it's really kind of a sad kind of a character piece.
Yeah, it is, and this, it's a sad thing. I love Cazale. Like he's one of the great actors, and we just didn't see enough of him.
We just did not get enough of him. Yeah.
Man, like he's never in a bad movie. Ever.
No, never.
No. And then he died, and it's just like, wow, this guy really. And he was right there in that milieu. Like every he was always working with either someone, a big director like Coppola, or with a big actor. Like he was always right in it, and he gave performances that are excellent every single time.
And Cazale himself is another one of those like very subdued, like another guy that you just look at his face, like that scene in The Conversation, when he meets when he's like working for just like some for the opposition more or less, and he's just selling equipment to make ends meet, and he gives that look to Gene Hackman, and that's all you need to. He doesn't need to say anything, and there's a lot of that in this movie. And he's got all these like great moments where he's just like, after a point they're just exhausted, they're just like, they're gonna give us the helicopter, right? We're gonna get out of here, and you're just like, fuck.
It's a great movie.
It's a great fucking movie, and it's again, it's one of my favorites. It's definitely, I mean, it's one of the crown jewels, and it's one of the stones in Pacino's Infinity Gauntlet.
Yeah, it is.
And but I love that it's before he went completely off the fucking wall. Not that that's a bad thing, because we're gonna get to those movies, because I love that side of him too. But I love the kind of thoughtful Pacino performances. Yeah.
Oh, let me turn on my light in my room. It's like it's dark in here now.
We're getting into the extended after hours section.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so now we're at number 33. So my number 33 is The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King.
No,
the third
kidding. Movie. I thought it was going to be the other way around. I thought we were going to hear about Fellowship first.
The Fellowship. We'll hear about The Fellowship.
Well, I'm sure why the fuck not? Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So this movie is about the end of this epic journey that we had been on for 6 hours basically at this point when this movie appears, and the extended version of this movie is 4 hours long.
Good.
It is
good,
epic. Dude. Like, okay, here's the thing about when you start getting into like the Lord of the Rings. You want to talk about deep dive? Man, you can go deep on this fucking movie. Like the other day, I just randomly was watching something with what's his name? The guy who plays Saruman. I forget. He's that British actor.
Christopher Lee?
Yeah, Christopher Lee.
Yeah.
Christopher Lee was talking about. So he was talking about in this movie. So he did his scenes, and then they showed the movie, and then they showed the theatrical cut to everyone before they showed it to anyone else. And
is it the thing about him being stabbed?
Well, basically, he's not in it. He's not in the theatrical cut. There's like a scene where they confront him at the tower, and then they basically kill him. And they cut that from the theatrical. And he was like, "What the fuck? I'm not in the movie." And he's like, "Oh, but you have to watch the extended cut." And that I'm in that version of it. So yeah, this movie, like, there's so much going on in this movie. Like there is so much going on, and there's so many things. Like that.
This is the one with the spider, right?
Yeah.
Spider. Fuck, dude, I love that shit. I saw this movie. Yeah. I saw this movie. Listen, I don't know shit. We talked about this with the Two Towers. I don't know shit about shit. I'm not into fantasy. I'm not into Lord of the Rings. I could care less. But I saw this movie in theaters in 2003 when it came out. And again, I was a kid. I was like 11 or 12 years old. But I couldn't follow a word of it. It was incomprehensible to me. And I hadn't seen part 2. I'd seen the fucking Fellowship, and I didn't understand that thing either. But I understood a little bit better than this. But like, I was just fucking captivated when I saw this.
It's mind blowing. It's mind blowing, like what they're able to do, and they've been building and building and building up all this stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, basically the main thing in this is they've won this battle, but then they need to unite all the humans to come together and fight this basically final battle, because Sauron's army is going to come and attack I forget whatever the massive city basically. And so it's pretty much like World War. World War Middle Earth is happening, and this is it, and we have to fight the battle to save the world. And man, that final battle is something else too. Like what it's just crazy, man. Right? Just thinking about the scale of what they're able to do.
Think about this. Think about the scale. Think about the fact that, like, not only that human beings made this thing, but like the schedules, the amount of extras, the logistics, the assistant director to the assistant director to the assistant director to fucking, like, I remember watching some behind the scenes stuff of how they made some of the battle scenes in Kingdom of Heaven, and I thought that looked exhausting.
Yeah, that looked exhausting.
This movie has got to be just fucking off the chains exhausting.
I mean, and it's so, like, they really like, what I appreciate is that they could have basically done like what George Lucas did with the prequels. Just have a fucking green screen somewhere, and just like, it's just you and a dude in a green room. But they really went out of their way to try and do as much practical stuff as they could in this movie. Yeah, the miniatures, and they've done a 4K of this.
Now again, I haven't rewatched these movies in like 15 years.
Yeah.
And it's been on my list. Now, as far in my mind's eye, it all holds up perfectly. Does it? On the 4K, do the miniatures, does everything, does it look, because like sometimes you get that early 2000s CGI kind of like, PS2 game effect, like some of the stuff in the Matrix Reloaded is just kind of like, it's like the ghosts, the twins floating around and shit. It's like, it gets a little weird, but like, as far as I can remember, a lot of this shit was practical.
Yeah. I mean, and a lot of it was practical. A lot of like the sets were miniatures, and so they shot it on 35, so it still looks good. A lot of he talked about this. This was really funny, actually, when he was talking about doing the 4K, that he said, this is not a special edition. He literally says that. He said, "This is not a Now I just want to say, this is not a special edition.
Yeah, burnt.
So they did not change any of the stuff in terms of like, upgrading it and making it.
There's no need to upgrade it. Like it's like, do you really need to fucking upgrade Lawrence of Arabia? Did you watch that shit? Like you don't need to upgrade that shit.
Yeah, you don't need to.
There's some things that like, yeah, okay, like do you need to upgrade Jurassic Park? I guess you could, but like, do you really want to fuck with it as an artifact? I don't think so.
Yeah, within the least, I think that there should be 2 tracks. It should be like, okay, here's the real thing that's untouched, and here's the thing that we fucked with, and we did a 4K re-res of the
CGI or whatever.
Yeah. If they
I don't think that's possible. The assets are not. No, the assets are not high resolution enough. I've looked into it.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, we got what we got basically. It would be interesting if they ever could.
They could redo it, but yeah.
Yeah, shoot it again, but then you're like what is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, but they don't even shoot stuff. Like stuff. The highest resolution you would do something. That's a special effect is like 2K. They don't even shoot stuff in 4K. That's like a special effect.
Special effects? Hell no.
Just don't do it. Just do not do it. And so there's basically a limit on how good it can look.
And that's why, but that's why I'm asking, because I don't think there's a limit on how good a real full scale battle can look, or a miniature kind of thing. Like when you're mixing in the practicals, like the fucking trench run in Star Wars, it just like looks good.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm curious.
Yeah. So no, it looks good. And the other thing too is like in the 4K they have a new sound 7.1 Dolby.
Is it Dolby Atmos or is it 7.1?
Yeah, it's Atmos. It's Atmos. Yeah. So it's kick ass. It's kick ass.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's the good shit.
It's
like that drug.
I honestly think Lord of the Rings is up there as a cinematic achievement, right up there with like a Seven Samurai or something. And just
if I put them all together as one film, they'd be in my top 10.
Right.
They'd be in my top 10. 100%.
Right.
100%.
Yeah. It's incredible.
Yeah. So basically again, the plot is like Aragorn, he's finally got over his thing. He's going to embrace that he's the king. And so then he meets these ghosts, literally ghosts.
Yeah.
And he recruits a ghost army. Gandalf is like trying to fight to protect the city from falling.
Are we at resurrected Gandalf at this point?
Yeah, this is Gandalf the White. No longer Gandalf the Gray.
Yes. Because he dies in that first one, right?
Oh yeah.
Whatever. He's got like a death scene, right?
He has a death scene. In the second movie, what we find, and this was kind of cool about the second movie, it opens up with him falling, and then we see him fight a fucking demon. Yeah.
I gotta rewatch these movies.
Dude, yeah, it starts with that scene with him falling, and you see him fall, and he falls, he fucking takes a sword, and he's fighting a demon as he's falling. And then later you find out that in the book, they go into it more. So, I think the film does a good job of like
Tolkien's
so
we talked
epic.
about this.
It's so epic that it's like, okay, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
Basically in the book they talk about he fought this demon Belrog for 30 days straight.
See that is like pure mythology stuff. Like that is that's like the Greek mythology stuff. And then Odysseus fucking sliced his cockles off, and it's just like.
It's like, and then they chopped off the nuts of the Titan. Exactly. He put it to the sea, and then the people came out.
And then he gave birth to 8 Medusas out of his semen. Like, all this crazy shit.
For real, yeah. So I mean, we get some battle scenes of him on the top of a fucking mountain fighting this demon thing, and he kills it. But we don't need to know like, yes, I fought him for 35 days.
No. We absolutely do not. Yeah.
Yeah, all you need to know about this movie is like there's just so much of the stuff that when you really see it and understand what they did, it's unbelievable what they did. That last scene when Frodo finally gets there and he just can't do it. He can't put the ring
right.
He's overcome, and then he gets his fucking finger bit off by this crackhead.
Good. He deserves it.
And then they throw him into the lava, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, this movie is just like unbelievable. It's unbelievable that they were able to do all the things that they did.
Yeah. Yeah. And ultimately, like you're right, like stripping away all of the fucking mythology of it, it is relatively a simple premise. It's just guy has thing, he needs to go from here to here and just do a thing, basically.
It would be like, imagine the World War II equivalent would be like,
it was 1917, right? We got to get the message to the brother.
Well, I'm thinking more like someone has like let's imagine like someone has the way to build a nuke. They have that, but you're in. Okay, here's the premise. Here's another pitch for you. Okay.
Okay.
So right. The Germans invent the bomb first, but a spy takes that information away from them. But they're in Germany in like 1939. They got to get out. That's the movie.
Yeah,
that's basically the Lord of the Rings.
Sure, I like that.
That's basically the Lord of the Rings. That you got to get out.
Yeah.
But there's this weapon of absolute destruction, and if it gets into the hands of the enemy, the world is over. Literally, the world is over, and the evil is going to supplant good for, I don't know, 1,000 years or some insane amount of time.
Just some shit. Yeah. Then we start to get into the weeds about like the whole fucking rules of this world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the premise. It's just like you gotta destroy this weapon of absolute destruction, or else the world ends.
Yeah. No, but like it's fucking the Return of the King though. Like what an achievement.
Yeah. Yeah. Truly, just like the scale of which it's just unbelievable. And he couldn't. It's so crazy because they couldn't even repeat it when they the same people went back to make The Hobbit, and they couldn't redo what they had just done. I
guess I think the approach to that was probably misguided because they were like, well, listen, we did the battle sequences. We did like that. We can't get bigger than that, but we have this new technology and we can fuck with the technology. We can shoot at a higher frame rate. We could do 3D. We could do more special. We could do CGI is good now, right? We could do that. Well, yes, but not when it looks like a video game. Like there's all these things that they've just.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing that I think about when I think of The Hobbit. So, okay, so you and me, we're executives at Warner Brothers.
Yeah, I'll lie.
And so I say to you, okay, is it better for us to make $1 billion or $3 billion?
Right.
We have to say 3, right? Or else why the fuck are we even working?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so you make 3 movies.
Well, honestly, The Hobbit could have been a really sweet ass like 3-hour movie.
Probably even, yeah. It could have honestly been like a 2-hour movie.
Yeah.
Or 2.5 hour even.
Yeah.
And stick really with the book.
Yeah.
And the other, and this is why it's so hard to make a good film, right? You got the same people making a film, but because the atmosphere was different, and it was hard for them just to make the Lord of the Rings, make 3 movies back to back to back.
Yeah.
The way
there's a certain scrappiness to Lord of the Rings that there isn't to like The Hobbit feels more corporate to me. Like the Lord of the Rings was like very much like, I want to make these fucking movies. We'll shoot them in my fucking backyard in New Zealand. I don't really care.
Yeah, we'll literally rig the laws. So
exactly.
Like they literally have a law called the Hobbit Law in New Zealand because they created this weird loophole so that they could basically, get tax breaks or whatever the fuck. So they can make these movies.
And that's what I'm saying. Like there's that feeling of just like, we're going to scale this mountain together. And then by the time we get to The Hobbit is like, the world is yours kind of. And
the thing too, is like when you're a filmmaker, right? And someone says, okay, we want you to do 3 movies. We're going to pay you. They probably paid them like $10 million each, at least.
Yeah.
And your budget is basically, they probably would cap it at like $150 million each.
Mm-hmm.
You can't say no.
Yeah, true.
You can't say no.
Right. Even if you've already made the fucking Lord of the Rings movies and you've already made your fucking dream $200 million King Kong movie.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't, like, it's so attractive.
You can't say no because all those resources you get, you can then do a bunch of other stuff with that you really want to do, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's just why. Again, why the Lord of the Rings is such a miracle, because it is. All these things came together to make it happen with the actors. The fact that they had Stuart Townsend playing Aragorn, and then they fired him halfway through, and then somehow they got the right guy. They are shooting it in New Zealand. They got the right director who's got a horror sensibility, but he's able to do, CGI and meld it and do miniatures.
They fucking listen. They got their Sam Raimi to make their fucking franchise. That's basically what it is.
Yeah, and the fact that it started with the Miramax, but they wanted one movie, and then he's like, I don't know, and then they then shipped it to New Line, and so then basically the head of New Line, the whole if the first movie failed, didn't make money, the whole thing sunk everything. Yeah, it's just crazy. Like it just, dude, we gotta appreciate it, right? And that's why we're doing this.
That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, thank you. That's what I've been trying to get at with these movies. Like, yeah, you could talk about The Hobbit, yeah, you could talk about other movies, but like the sheer will power that goes into creating these first 3 movies. And again, it's like you're saying, like they're inventing all of these like tax laws and things to shoot these battle scenes because, I mean, short of, I don't know, like what do you have to be to shoot those types of battle scenes? You have to be Dances with Wolves or Braveheart or Gladiator or something like that. No one's gonna let you fucking do this for like a dumb fantasy movie that like nobody gives a shit about at the time. Right. I mean, it's not that nobody gives a shit about it. It's just that it's not.
It hasn't been proved, right?
Exactly.
There's nothing provable about it.
Like it wasn't even like the Spider-Man movies, right? To say that at least there's some kind of corner of nerddom that we can mine for this stuff. There's none of that. There's, I think, what did they have in the fucking Batman movies in the 90s, right? And those crashed and burned. So like, it's just such I love talking about like what these movies represent more than even talking about the movies themselves to a certain point. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just an absolute confluence of all these perfect things to create this beautiful piece of art,
Yeah, and they're amazing.
They are totally. So that's my number 33. The Lord of the Rings: The Return of the King.
Sick. Yeah, that's pretty high. This is my number 33 is a movie that I thought was going to be much higher. I mean, it again, at this point, they're all my babies. They're all my babies at this point. But I just, this movie is, you can't fuck with it, dude. This movie's so good. I'm going to read you a quote from this movie, all right? I'm going to read you a line from the main character. Ever notice how you come across somebody once in a while you shouldn't have fucked with? That's me. Walt Kowalski, dude. Gran Torino, Clint Eastwood.
Hell yeah.
I mean, Jesus, dude. What can you say about this movie? I mean, you want to talk about a movie that you can't make today? This is another one of those. Like you can't.
Could you imagine if they made this today? I think Clint doesn't give a fuck. So
Clint doesn't give a fuck, but like this movie's borderline illegal. Like no fucking studio lets you make this unless you're Clint Eastwood and you're at Warner Brothers and you've already made 30 movies for them. And it's just this great swan song kind of to the entire it's a swan song to the Eastwood mythos. Like it's self-referential because he knows, I mean, he's the star of it and he's directing it, and it's the first thing he had acted in probably I think 4 years at the time. But it's certainly,
he said he would never act again, basically. Correct. At the time.
Basically, yeah. Which we learned that some people are just born to do a thing. Like we were talking about, Brad Pitt was just born to be in pictures. Clint Eastwood was just born to be in pictures and to make movies. His entire adult life revolves around, like he's been doing shit since the 1950s. Yeah. He has been on studio lots. Like think about how long of a time that is to be doing any one job and then to be constantly directing and constantly acting and shit. I mean, it's insane. So by the time we get to Gran Torino, this is the swan song of not only, it's like, it represents him and his entire generation. This like, not necessarily, I mean, this like racist old man and not maliciously. I mean, he's not malicious about it. Some of the stuff he says comes across as malicious, but like, it's just purely the from the perspective of the 1950s guy. We used to stack people like you this high back in fucking Korea. And
his neighborhood's changing. His kids they suck.
Right. But
there's no one he connects with. Right.
Correct. And everybody, right. All of his fucking racist friends are dead or dying. And, he's kind of the last, he's like a relic basically. Yeah, and you can read that on many levels. You could read that as Clint is saying that, his movies are a relic, or he's a relic, or his type of machismo kind of action guy is a relic. And then you could say that like some of Clint's politics are fucked in, you know, this and that. And I don't really care to get into any of that stuff, because as a movie, it is so relatable. It is so, I mean, it's not unique. We've seen plenty. There's plenty of movies of just like, you know, bitter old man moves into a neighborhood, or people move into his neighborhood, and it's like about him trying to. It's like the Leon the Professional thing is just like, oh, we're trying.
Right.
Or Up. Right. Yeah, sure.
Right.
I mean, Up comes after this, but yeah, it's basically that same kind of story, but it's filtered through the lens of the legend of Clint Eastwood, and he's directing it, and it that's why it works for me, is that he's very aware of what he's doing and the stuff that he's saying, and he knows the stuff that he's saying is fucking irreprehensible. And you know, by the end of the movie, by the end of the movie, ultimately, you know, the fucking fossil gets his comeuppance basically. He cannot survive. He literally cannot survive in this world, like in this modern day world. It just can't happen. But there's so many great scenes in this movie. It's as close to a Tarantino movie as I think Clint Eastwood ever made. With the dialogue, with the quips, and he calls her fucking like a dragon lady. Get us more sandwiches.
Dragon lady. Dude, my favorite was like there's like a white guy who's like trying to be like a gangster, like black guy or whatever. It's like, what's wrong with you? You're trying to be Super Spade? And it's
yeah. It's that's
and it's like I'm learning words that I never even knew were racist, basically.
Yeah, no, this movie like absolutely like, it mines the fucking
mines like racist.
It does
slang.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like it's just like it really feels like the bookend to almost like the Dirty Harry kind of shit, you know?
It does. It's
like Dirty Harry retired and he lived in Michigan and he was just doing his thing, and then his fucking neighborhood changed, and this is how he kind of dealt with the end of basically his story.
Of that era, yeah. I mean, Dirty Harry, and I mean, not to confuse these things, because like Dirty Harry was at, like on the political end is the exact opposite of Walt Kowalski, because Dirty Harry was actually like super progressive for the time. The way he chews out that police commissioner in like the first or second movie about like the female officer, basically he's like, oh, she can't be a cop because she's a woman. She fucking does a better job than me, you know, that kind of stuff. But I don't know. I love this movie. It's a great, believe it or not. For me, it's a great family movie. I watched this movie with, I had family visiting from Romania at the time in like 2009, I think. I watched it with my grandparents. I watched it with my uncle, and everybody got it. Like it was a universal thing. Like they didn't have to understand the American, like the Korean War vet angle and the racial kind of, because like, you know, like we don't really, there's nothing I can relate kind of like having like, what are they like, Korean, you know, people moving into your neighborhood. Like you can't really relate that to another culture as well. Like it's a very American thing, this movie, but everybody kind of got it. It's not about all of the, like, you could take away the racist shit and whatever, and you could just say like, it's just about people learning to coexist basically. And kind of giving up some of that. Like, again, like you were talking about with the other movie, it's just like, just because like I'm supposed to hate you doesn't mean, you know, hey, howdy. Hey, thank you, Clint. Hi, how you doing? Blow a hole in your face and go inside and sleep like a baby.
This movie is really something else on a lot of levels. And I feel like this is like the movie for him to make and act in 100%.
Yeah, and I mean, again, he is not. It is a perfect bookend to that type of character. He does eventually. He acts in like 2 more movies. Mm-hmm. The most recent one he made, The Mule, is pretty good. It's pretty close, but it's not. It's, you know, it's a little more plot driven, and it's not. It doesn't hit the highs of Gran Torino, but it's kind of the same idea of like racist old man gets involved with drug dealers. But this is it basically. Yeah.
Cool. All right, so we're at number 32.
Mm-hmm.
So my number 32 is Scorsese film Goodfellas.
Oh shit!
So Goodfellas is like,
strap in, boys. We're going long.
Talk about a TV all-star.
Yeah, right.
Never not watch the whole thing when you watch this movie.
It's impossible.
This is a funny comment.
Do you feel lucky, punk? Did I fire 5 shots or 6?
God, I love it. So yeah, Goodfellas is like, I feel like Goodfellas is, I'm pretty sure this is my favorite Scorsese movie of all time. This,
I think if you held a gun at my head and I had to answer in 5 seconds, I would probably say Goodfellas too.
You know, I was watching this again recently, and I find it funny that people kind of give basically like he's kind of been doing the same movie for a while. This, Casino, even The Irishman, like they just do the same thing. Like in this movie, Wolf of Wall Street, these big, basically 3-hour epics about some person and them over time, and they use these different techniques to like depict how time changes.
The Aviator.
Yeah, The Aviator. Yeah, exactly. And like, so in this movie, like Henry Hill starts off as like a teenager, but it's fucking Ray Liotta, and he does.
Right.
Ray Liotta never looked like a teenager.
No. Like not even in his earliest, like I remember like I went through his like filmography a while ago, like his earliest movies in like 83 or whatever, he looks like fucking Ray Liotta.
This guy wants to know what you're drinking.
I'm not Powerade, I guess.
Powerade. Yeah, so this is Scorsese and Pileggi. Did they also do Casino together?
I don't know. That's a good. I'm gonna look that up right now.
I'm sure they've done other films together. I feel like that was another film that he wrote that Scorsese directed.
Yeah, it was Casino.
Casino, yeah. They're strong. Like when the two of them worked, like those two movies, Goodfellas and Casino, are like some of the best shit.
Fun fact: Pileggi, producer on The Irishman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was the gang getting together.
The gang, no, literally, yeah. Go back, search through the archives, look at our Irishman conversations if you want to learn more about that.
Yeah, our stuff on we went over and we could talk for hours. We have talked for hours about The Irishman.
Yeah,
but yeah, this film again, it's like the same stuff. It's a guy, his life over time, and he just does all this beautiful stuff to like get us into the time period, get us into the characters. It's really incredible what and Thomas Schumacher edited this one too, right?
Well, of course. I mean, so okay, you got to think like Scorsese's been making the same movie over and over again. All right, like when does this kind of formula perfect? It's this movie, right? This is the kind of blueprint of it, and so you got to think it's like all of the things that are working for him in this movie, and she is absolutely the fucking like glue, literally that like makes all these movies.
What I love about this stuff too is like when you. Because I feel like, so for me, I feel like he's like a director's director. You know, he like takes these moments and then he like puts a really interesting spin on them. And I don't know if your regular audience member totally understands what he's doing. So I'll just give you an example. When they're digging that fucking ditch, when the guy who's in the trunk and then they pull him out of the trunk, they shoot him. And there's that scene, and I don't know how he got it to look like this, but it's just one of the most insane scenes where it's like backlit and it's fucking red and you see them in silhouettes. They're fucking digging. Yeah. Like that's some of the most beautiful.
That's cinematic as fuck, dude.
Cinematic shit ever put in any film ever. But I don't know if people really understand and appreciate how beautiful that is in this movie about people who are fucking gangsters. Yeah,
right.
Like the fact that he's able to do that and give us both all the time. It's just so unbelievable. And there's another like really beautiful shot that he does where I think they were like on the phone and like, what's his name? He just got killed. They said, oh yeah, we're gonna make you a main guy. No, he gets shot.
Right.
And they're it's him and De Niro and they're in the
diner.
In the diner. And it's like, it's a slow
dolly.
It's a slow dolly zoom.
Yeah.
And the effect you get seeing a slow dolly zoom. Yeah, it's just like
not amazing. Only that. There's the track. I mean, everybody talks about the tracking shot when they go inside the Copacabana and everything. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of really like filmic stuff, and that's kind of what makes. We just talked about Scorsese during the whole Wolf of Wall Street segment, but that's kind of what makes why he's so kind of venerated. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, he's just at the peak of his powers in this film.
Yeah, I think so.
It's unbelievable. Like, and it's just so entertaining too, you know?
Dude, it is so, it's unbelievable. I've put this movie on before to watch like a 10-minute clip, and I ended up watching an hour and a half of it.
Yeah,
Like, you can't stop. Again, and it has to do with the dialogue, the editing, the characters, the fast talking nature of it, the performances. Obviously, Joe Pesci, he's on the screen, he's just fucking chewing it up. You can't turn away. Yeah.
Your
It's
guy's in
great.
it from what's it called, from the TV show,
Sopranos?
from Sopranos.
Yeah,
He's
dude.
in this.
Dude, there's a lot of people
Spider.
from Spider. Yeah, Imperioli's in this. Frank
Imperioli.
Vincent. Frank Vincent is the guy that they're burying. He's like the whole conceit of the movie. You've got Tony Sirico's in this for a little bit. Obviously, Lorraine Bracco, the fucking mob wife, who was at the time forever typecast as the mob wife, and she had to fight tooth and nail to not be the mob wife. Dude, it took her like a decade to not become to be cast as not mob roles. She did a movie. It's funny. She did a movie in 1994 or 5 called Getting Gotti. Where she's like a prosecutor about getting John Gotti, and then it's so funny, dude. And then eventually they made the Gotti movie for HBO with Armando Sante, and then she was like, they were talking about getting her for The Sopranos for HBO as the mob wife, and she was just like, "Fuck off, dude."
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is just like, this is my favorite Scorsese movie. There's so much of just all the good stuff that's here.
Yeah, this is I feel like the one that's universal. Like, there's parts, like, again, like you could say you prefer, like, I'm a Wolf of Wall Street guy because I like the cocaine and the titties, or like I'm more of a, I like some of his more I'm a Taxi Driver, more psychological, whatever. But I feel like you could put on Goodfellas in front of any kind of movie fan, and they would just, it is just so instantly entertaining. And yeah, it's just so much of it is the characters and
the lines, and like, he just does,
it's quotable.
He just makes all these cool choices, like that scene when Henry, basically rats on him, and it's like, he like basically breaks the fourth wall. He's talking to the camera.
Yeah, like at the end,
when he's like on the witness stand, and then they have him talk to the camera, and then he like walks out.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's just so cool. I mean, that was probably a writing thing too.
Yeah.
But
I feel like it's, when it comes to mob movies, and I mean, again, Sopranos riffed a lot on this because they knew that they were a TV show about gangster shit, and if they were going to base the gangsters in the modern day, then the gangsters have to know about these movies. So it's like The Godfather and then Goodfellas. Like, in terms of just in the culture of mob movies and how people conceive of the mafia, this is right under The Godfather, I think, and it's not a stretch to say that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because like this is like, it's taking that, and because The Godfather is almost, because again, that time period that's dealing with is like post World War II. It's very different from what we're dealing with here. Well, not very different, but it is like a different type of gangster.
It's a different type of gangster, exactly. It's in a way, it's like feels like less degenerate. Even though they're doing the same exact shit and they're killing people basically for all the ultimate gains of money and glory, but like it just feels a little more classy because everybody's wearing suits and not saying fuck as much. Yeah,
Goodfellas, like the thing about like The Godfather is like they're almost like the royalty, right?
Yeah, like, no, they are.
If you could imagine a gangster royalty, because like that's really the conceit of Vito. He's just like, oh, I don't like to sell the drugs. I don't blame you if you do it, but I'm not going to do it. Right. I just own all the politicians in New York, and I use that to get money. That's what I do. But I don't want to sell drugs, and I don't want to do,
It's a little more intellectual than that. It's just, and then because it's very easy to make the draw the line in the audience's head of like, wait, so is he saying that the systems of power are just as corrupt as the mafia? So like you could get into some of the more kind of read deeper into it, but I feel like Goodfellas is like the surface level of it is a lot more accessible, and just like it's just wise guys doing wise guy shit, pretty much. And you could leave it at that, or you could dig deeper and you could get into some of the filmic aspects of it and some of the stuff. Like, again, like people talk about that shot of when Jimmy is telling Lorraine, or not Lorraine, what was her name in the movie? Karen.
Karen. Yeah, like, literally her name is Karen.
right around the corner, right in there.
Yeah, oh my God, that scene's so good.
Yeah, so like there's so many of those things that you could read into, and you could write, a Roger Ebert review on this, or you could just get stoned and watch this on Netflix at 2 a.m. It works. Yeah. It works on every level.
Yeah, and it's just like, again, the writing is so good because the stories are so palpable, right?
Yeah.
Like that scene where they're gonna feed this guy to a fucking lion in Florida.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh fuck, I guess they really do feed people to lions in Florida.
I love that shit. I love that every mobster movie ends up in, like, they got to have a scene in Florida because there's an element of like they all go to hide out in Florida or whatever, and so there's always that element. I remember in The Irishman even there's like a couple scenes where they go to Florida. I mean,
that scene is amazing.
Yeah.
They're like, this is how you come to a meeting, dressed like this.
You wear a suit in the summer for a meeting anywhere. For a meeting, and you're late.
And then he starts the whole thing out just like, oh man, it's really hot in you. I'm so glad we're in Florida. It's been cold in New York. It's summer. It's summer.
Yeah, but
he just never got over that you people shit when they were together.
And that's a thing. That's another like gangster trope. There's just like. It's like fucking, Frank Vincent's character in The Sopranos. There's one thing and it lingers on for like 3 seasons and then that ends up being the undoing of the show.
Yeah. I mean, right? Mobsters. Like what's this movie about? This dude insults Jimmy about some shit, and we see it when he was like a kid.
Yep.
And then he can never get over that, so he fucking kills him, and doing that dooms him, and it didn't happen right away.
Yeah.
They just wait, and he has that great line. It's like, the people that come to kill you, they come with smiles. It's not the people you expect. They get you at your weakest moment and they kill you. That's what happened to him. Yeah, it's great.
This is such a great movie. Yeah. And we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Soon.
Cool. Yeah, so that's my number 32. It's Goodfellas.
Sick. My number, wow, what a gear switch. Although, listen, not really. Because when I was watching this movie for the second time, I want to say, I've seen this movie 3 or 4 times now. When I was watching it, my number 32, when I was watching it, I was like, this is basically every Scorsese movie ever. Like the structure of it. What am I talking about? I'm talking about Citizen Kane. My number 32 is Citizen Kane. And I think the reason that I like this movie as much as I do, and the reason it's as high up on the list, because you haven't seen too many of these like quote unquote classic movies on my list, because my list is just full of fucking degenerate shit.
Yeah.
Citizen Kane to me works because of the structure of it. It's just such it's very unlike every other classic movie of the time. It's not linear in the same way. It's told through the perspective of the people who are, writing about it or whatever. The main character's dead at the beginning of the movie, and so the entire thing is told in retrospect from potentially unreliable narrators. I mean, there's just so much shit going. There's so much shit going on in this movie, in this screenplay, that like is just kind of unheard of at this time. I mean, this is 1941. I mean, not that long ago, we were doing shit like Bringing Up Baby, where it's just Cary Grant and Katharine Hepburn and a tiger. It's hilarity. It's like not too far removed from that stuff, and it's such a complex premise. And then the thing that really puts this whole thing over the top is the meta element of the William Randolph Hearst and the lampoonery and the bravado with which this movie just comes out with its dick swinging, and it's just like, we are just going to piss all over you, and we don't care. We're going to do it through the studio, like the Hollywood system. I mean, the studios wouldn't want to touch it, obviously, but like, we're going to put this movie out in this ecosystem and just watch it wreak havoc. And of course, they did their best, and they subdued it, and it didn't win that many awards or whatever. But again, you trace it, and it's, one of the top 2 or 3 movies that people keep talking about. So it's just such a brilliant movie, and it's just so inventive, and in the way that like it starts up with a mirror, like a reflection off of the fucking globe, and it's just like does all these weird camera tricks. And I don't have to explain to you like what Citizen Kane did and why it was so revolutionary at the time. But that makes it so watchable and rewatchable for me because it is more complex than just like, you know, I mean, you can get into some of the other stuff with some of the other movies, but like it's just structurally like a really complex movie and it's really interesting. And again, it's one of those things that takes place over the course of like, you know, 2, 3, 4 decades, and it goes through this person's life. And what were we just talking about? Like the Scorsese kind of genre of movie where it's just we're going to go through the eras, and this movie goes through the eras. It starts with the newsreel and it goes through the era and all the political shit, and it follows this character all the way through and all of his love interests and stuff. This is the same shit that we had in Wolf of Wall Street, where, you know, he had this one woman that he had a kid with or not had a kid with because she couldn't have a kid, so he went with this other girl and whatever. Like, we're still seeing movies that are built off of the back of the structure of Citizen Kane. And that's why I love it. And it's really rewatchable. It's a tight 2 hours, and it is just as entertaining as any other kind of biopic you could put on. And it's not a biopic. It's not a biopic.
Yeah.
It's fiction. I swear.
Yeah, this movie, there's so much about that can be said about this movie. And there's a lot that has been said about this movie.
Yeah.
You know, we were just talking about Mank, a movie about the guy who wrote this movie.
Right.
Just the guy who wrote the movie.
Just that, because again, it's just like, is this the movie about making the movie? No. There's so much shit to talk about Citizen Kane that you could have its own 2-hour movie about just a 60-day period during which the first draft is written. We don't even get into the rewrites and the disputes about who gets credit or whatever. It's just the fucking the impetus of it. It's crazy. There's just so much to talk about with Citizen Kane.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Anyway, so I'm gonna not say a whole bunch, but one thing that I really, really, really think is incredible about this, and basically he was using all of the most like cutting edge techniques of his time to tell this story.
He was swinging.
And there's so much stuff where you realize, you know, like the scene where it's him and he's giving the speech. That's a matte painting.
Yeah.
That high angle shot of the guy watching him. That's a matte painting. The scenes where it's her in the opera and then there's like this long tracking shot up.
Yeah.
Like half of that was like real thing, matte painting, real people.
Yeah, right. The tracking shot, the dolly shot when we go into the bar, from we see the neon sign and then through the skylight and then onto the table. That is unheard of for 1941. You don't like, we do that shit now. You see that in a movie now and you're like, okay, cool, they edited that. Back then it was fucking black magic, dude.
Yeah.
A lot of these things were.
There's just so much stuff that he really, like, he was able to take all the resources he had. Great DP, all these guys are just able to do everything, and he just like poured it in and make the most cinematic thing he possibly could.
And but these are all like rejects. They're like Hollywood rejects. They're like, it's like a rogues gallery of just like, the studio system fucked us. We're gonna fuck them back with this one movie, and it's just such a brilliant movie.
Yeah. I love it.
I love it too. Yeah.
Okay. So I think we're at number 31.
Yeah, we made it.
Wow. So my number 31. Definitely one of the films that, you know, is just, again, it's just really affected me when I watched it as a kid. When it came out, blew my fucking mind. The first movie I ever saw in IMAX was The Dark Knight.
Oh, Jesus Christ, dude.
Yeah. Dark Knight.
Yeah.
So I think The Dark Knight. So I really feel like this film is a lot of the reason why where we're at today.
Yeah.
Because this is the film. There were like people like the Spider-Man movies, people like Batman '89, but we all felt like they honestly were just like not really good movies.
Well, they weren't. So the Spider-Man movies were great, and then what did we get? We got Fantastic Four. And we got
a bunch of shit. We got
Elektra. And then, you know, like the X-Men movies, you could say, okay, those were kind of good too.
They were
like
better, but they were not this.
They were not no.
They were not this. Not the level of acting, not the level of scale, not like an actual auteur.
The seriousness with which the subject matter is taken. Again, you just got to have a guy who says, I'm going to make a crime movie and make it do all of the tapestry of the crime movie and the acting and the seriousness, and then put these superhero characters in them, and then make you realize that the superhero characters, by definition, have to be fucking insane because he's dressing up as a bat on, scaring people. So it's just a really cool
It's
twist.
just the perfect mix of the actors, an auteur, and the right time where it just all completely blew up.
Also the same year that Iron Man came out too.
Yeah. This movie, it got close to making it. Basically would have made $1 billion, but then the Chinese government banned it or whatever because of one scene.
That's so stupid. There's no reason to ban that scene.
Yeah, it's crazy. They banned the whole movie. But yeah, anyway, so this movie is so. I think it's not even. I don't really think there's any movie totally close to as good as this in terms of the genre. I think there are other ones that are good, or they do things really good, or like I really, for me, the other one that's really important is the Avengers, because I think without the Avengers succeeding, we are not in the world we're in right now.
Oh,
in
absolutely
terms of entertainment.
No.
Like if that movie failed, like we are in an absolutely different universe in terms of cinema.
Yeah.
Like the MCU would have just still been basically Iron Man movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so this is the other movie where it's like, okay, this is a real genre that people can feel like they get real meaning out of. Like it's not just some stuff for kids. Like you can take an auteur and have them create like incredible cinema out of this.
Mm-hmm.
And these characters are just a way for us to create new experiences. And yeah, I just think that this is like being there and experiencing it, like seeing it in the theater and talking about it, and like how much it just took over everything. Like this movie became everything.
Yeah.
When it was out, people were like, "This is the greatest." For a lot of people, this was just like the greatest movie ever immediately.
Yeah. No, for real, it was. Because, and I'm gonna shelve a lot of this conversation because this movie is much, much higher on my list. But for the reason, there's so many reasons, but like it just does. To me, I don't even look at it as a superhero movie to me, because you can look at it that way. It's complex enough to where you can say it's not even, you could read it as, it's just a bunch of fucking crazy people going at it, thinking that, they are they are the cure for society, basically, from two opposing angles. Like you can look at it in so many different ways. And then for a lot of people, the reason they saw this, it's like a 2.5 hour movie. It's got these great epic scenes. It's got these IMAX visuals. It's got this score that to this day, we're still getting the same fucking score in every big budget movie, pretty much. That's Hans Zimmer, like, it's in every fucking movie. So to a lot of people, this was like a perfect confluence of like all of the stuff that came before, like all of the great epics, like Heat, and mixed with some of the Spider-Man stuff, with some of the world building of some of the other movies. I haven't quite thought it through because it's higher on my list, but like the point is, it is just a great, like, you're right, it's like an inflection point. It's just the Hollywood kind of system looks different after this movie.
Yeah, I think Nolan, he had a funny quote. He said he made these at the point before comic book films were, I think he called them like engines of commerce. Yes, that's the word he used.
I like that.
Yeah, that's that, because it's really true. But what's so funny is that he's the reason why. Yeah. This movie is the reason why it became an engine of commerce. Like it's literally, he did it.
But that's why, right. But it's like, what is he going to do? Apologize for making a great fucking movie? I think that he just made a great movie that happened to have these characters in it. I don't think he was trying to reinvent the superhero genre necessarily. Yeah. I think he just found these characters. In particular, he found like the Joker and the Batman, which is as a starting point in like all of fiction and all of the stories and myths that humans have created, one of the greatest oppositions, right, that we've ever come up with. one of the greatest rivalries. So he has that starting, and then he just builds a really good movie around it. And, you know, he's Christopher Nolan, so he just crafts this, like, these set pieces that are just unfuckwithable, that nobody else can quite pull off. And again, he has the foresight to go and say, there's 4 IMAX cameras in the world. Give me all of them.
Yeah.
You know,
all
like,
of them.
Shit like that.
And I'm gonna basically shoot like the first, what, like 10 minutes or whatever, just totally with IMAX cameras.
You guys, like, you remember
people's fucking minds.
You remember those David Lean movies from the 50s? I'm gonna make one of those, but like by way of Michael Mann. Like, it's just such a cool thing.
It's so cool. And like, so for me, I think there's 2 moments in this movie that really stand out. Like, I'll never forget. Like, when I saw it the first time, when they do the fucking pencil trick, like that was like, because that was a Joker moment. Like, if you could quintessentially describe what is the Joker, you have him fucking walk in like that and then kill a guy with a pencil. There's some interesting stories about how they shot that too, because there was no trickery, there was no fake stuff. That was a guy getting his head slammed into a desk and moving the thing. Swear to God, the guy fucking gets his head, and he has the last minute has to move the pencil, and they did that like 10 times.
Wow.
Some guy was bashing his head into the thing.
This is almost, I feel like it's almost Kubrick levels of just like reinventing a fucking genre, pretty much.
Yeah. There is no way. Like, if you take away the Dark Knight, if you just have Batman Begins,
right?
It's a totally different landscape. Because
I think so.
I think you probably still do end up getting into, you know, the Avengers and that kind of shit. But I feel like the Avengers definitely have, because they were like, okay, we can make $1 billion with this. It is possible.
Well, Warner Brothers is figuring it out 10, 12, how many fucking years ago? Dark Knight to me feels like it came out 2 years ago. Like, it's so recent in my memory because I saw it in theaters a couple times, like many times when it came out.
Yeah, many times.
And it was so like transformative because as a kid, like, you've seen some of the movies that I've been talking about that I grew up with. I love action movies and I love these great kind of Hollywood big kind of movies. And again, Heat is a big one for me, and we'll talk about it. But shit, what was the tangent I was going off on? I already forgot. But yeah,
I think it was like how it got us to where we are now. Like this film feels like it was made in 2017.
Yeah. No. I was going to say that the Warner Brothers is kind of figuring out again that, like, the reason that this kind of worked out is because Marvel's movies, they're doing a lot of kind of comedy and they're doing a lot of serialized, kind of like a TV show, like where just all your favorite characters are all existing here, kind of a thing.
It's Cheers, but like with superpowers.
Exactly. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Everybody
knows your name. Okay, hey, so Tony Stark, what's up?
Yeah. So if Marvel's doing Cheers, Chris Nolan did Heat one time, and now they're finally figuring out that, like, what if we just stick to the psychology of this stuff? Like, that's working for us better. And so what did they do? Joker came out last year, and they gave it to a guy who really likes Scorsese movies, they were going to give it to Scorsese himself, right? And boom, that's another $1 billion for you. So, like, they're finding out that you can take these risks. And I mean, Joker is literally fucking Taxi Driver, right? And King of Comedy with the Joker in it. Mm-hmm. And Dark Knight is literally Heat with the Joker in it. So, like,
it's the Heat with Joker and Batman, and yeah.
So they're figuring out that, like, you can.
But you know what? Why that's so accurate? Because Heat is about a cop and a criminal.
That's exactly
and how they intersect. This is about the superhero and the supervillain.
Well, they have
how they intersect.
Well, that's that scene where Pacino and De Niro meet in the coffee shop is in the Dark Knight. It's in the interrogation room with Dark Knight and Joker. I mean, it's just so funny to me. So yeah, like, they're figuring out that you can trust the audience to, you know, like a thing that is basically like there's a reason that those old movies work. Just redo them and put these characters in them. And then Marvel's just on its own different track, just basically making the fucking Cheers verse of their characters.
Yeah.
But absolutely, like, I don't know, like the market for these things, is definitely spawned by this movie.
Totally, because before then you could say, okay, these things they do kind of well, and like the Fox stuff, like they were on their own track, and they really they were building up. The blocks were going up. This was a astronomical leap. This was a massive leap forward for the genre. It was taken seriously.
Yeah.
He won an Oscar. I mean, unfortunately, if he hadn't have died, he probably wouldn't have won, but fuck the Academy anyway.
But
he deserved it.
Dude. He deserved it.
He fucking deserved it.
There's
so much about this movie, like, where you can get a Oscar-worthy performance from a comic book character.
Movie, yeah.
No one would have thought that in like 2007.
Right.
Like the over/under would have been like 10 years on someone winning an Oscar for a comic book performance.
Right.
And it just showed that the genre, you can do so much, and it can be the engine of commerce. You can make money and make art, and it's just like, whoa, the sky's the fucking limit, because this is IP. This is stuff that people know about.
Yeah,
this isn't just fucking random shit,
Exactly. It's like it was like their big aha moment. It's like Star Wars all over again. It's like we can make a film that is an honest effort and is trying to be filmic and is trying to rip off. I mean, honestly, Star Wars is just trying to do the fucking, what was that Kurosawa movie?
Hidden Fortress.
Hidden Fortress, right? Yeah. Right. So like you can do these things and market them, but then you can sell toys. Oh,
exactly. And they own the IP, so they don't have to like find the next George Lucas. Yeah. They just have to get a guy who's smart to figure out, what's the angle? What's the angle on this character? What's the angle on the Joker? What's the angle on Batman? What's the angle on Superman or whatever?
Exactly.
And they own all the IP, so then they just sell the toys and all the merchandise. Boom.
Right.
It's a winner, chicken dinner.
Mm-hmm. And we're still riding that train. 2020 would have had a lot more of these comic book movies come out, but we'll see. I mean, I don't think their popularity is going to change just because theaters have been closed and we haven't seen one in a year. We're gonna get Wonder Woman here in like 5 days or something.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you one thing. I actually think basically we're gonna see a depressing level. Like when you see the numbers that whatever the Marvel movie does in comparison to other movies, you're gonna be like, it's gonna be actually even worse.
I think so.
It's basically what I would say. The amount of money that the Marvel movies will start making relative to other movies is going to be even more stark.
Even like a greater divide, you're saying?
Yeah. They're going to make, but like before they'd be like, okay, Marvel makes
because there's a hunger for it, or why do you think?
Because that's all people believe in now as a commodity, film commodity.
Oh yeah.
It's
yeah.
I don't know, like people will be like, I don't know if I want to see Free Guy, or I don't know if I want to see the but I will see the Marvel movie.
Mm-hmm.
There are people like they have that level of confidence in the brand and the IP that they will go out and see the Marvel movie.
Well, especially, I mean, imagine that you didn't plan for a world-ending fucking pandemic, right? Or ending the world as we know it, I should say. But you leave people on the ultimate nut bust that was Avengers Endgame, with every fucking nerd just splooged in their own face. And then it's silence. It's radio silence. So when these movies come back, of course, there's going to be all this pent up like excitement to see where they go next. Yeah.
So I mean, The Dark Knight. I really I don't know if people will ever truly be able to, like, someone like if I have a kid in like 5 years, if they'll ever truly understand how powerful this film was when it came out. How it shaped the world that I live in today, and how maybe they'll even live it. But this movie, this movie was it. This movie is why the cinematic landscape is what it is. Because it just did it so well that it just became, it's like a mythic story.
It kind of, And again, I'm just so glad that I mean, we do have movies. We have a lot of old classic movies that are now being remade in 4K, but I'm so glad that, again, he had that he was nerdy enough to care to shoot it on film, but to go a step further and to shoot on that IMAX film. And we have this pristine fucking perfect quality version of these films in that moment where, he takes his mask off, and you want to talk about like a cinema moment. Right, like that Heath Ledger performance in that movie is right up there. So I'm glad that that's immortalized.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the good thing is like with this, we'll be able to get pretty close to what
Right.
the experience in the theater was
Hmm.
with other people who watch it later. If you watch like a 4K,
We are gonna be the old fucks in like 40 years that are like, I saw Star Wars in 1977 and it blew our fucking pants off. Like that's gonna be, this is our movie.
oh
Basically.
man, I could like
Yeah.
I can't wait to tell people about
Yeah.
when we saw that fucking truck flip.
Oh!
We saw that fucking truck flip. When you see that truck flip, it's like what?
Yeah.
It's a real truck flipping in a fucking like street in Chicago.
Yeah. Shot on IMAX.
Shot on a fucking IMAX.
Yeah.
And the fucking and it just
the
tracks
the
in.
crane in, yeah. Or the
Holy
zoom in,
shit.
Yeah.
Holy shit. And that's I mean, that's just like that's what cinema's about, man.
Yeah, it's movie magic.
That's what cinema's about. You see that, and that's the payoff of that whole sequence. Basically, is him, flipping the truck, and you're just like, wow.
Mhm. I wish they hadn't shown that in the fucking previews because I knew that was in there, but it was, it was still great.
Yeah, but to see that in an IMAX theater,
Yeah.
I mean that right, and that's why Nolan is such a great filmmaker. And
He's a student. He's a student of the Kubricks and the David Leans. He knows the power of spectacle.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm slightly worried for how things are going with him.
He's losing his mind. No. I mean, not that. I'm not saying he's going crazy. I'm saying he's not doing well because all he values, as far as I could tell, is just the fucking movie theater experience, and it's being slaughtered right in front of him.
Yeah,
so he doesn't know what to do.
I think beyond that, I think he's like, I almost feel like he looks at this stuff with disdain, where I think that this is where he could thrive.
Mm-hmm.
I think he could really like this is what his wheelhouse could be and should be. I mean, it's good that he's making the Tenets and the Interstellars, and this movie allowed him to do those things. So I almost feel like I wish that he really
you're saying in terms of the comic book movies.
I think he has disdain for the commercial shit that he did in the past on a certain level.
Absolutely.
Like he doesn't want to touch it anymore. He's like, oh, I'm beyond that. It's like, dude, like this is like, first off, this is why you got to do Interstellar and Inception.
Yeah.
And Tenet. And this shit is really good. It's still some of the best stuff you've ever done. And it might be good for you to go back to doing that because then it would recenter you and allow you to do another 10 years of
and 10 years of Inceptions. Yeah.
Whatever you want. I just it feels weird that he's so kind of against this thing that he created. He created this world. He created the world we're living in.
Yeah. I wonder if there's any amount of money or like a Hobbit moment where Warner Brothers says, all right, listen, I'm gonna give you $200 million. But you can pick any fucking property. You can pick a DC, whatever the fuck you want. You just do another one, basically.
I'm sure. I remember like they said they were going to give Bale like $50 million or some craziness.
Oh no! I don't want more of the Dark Knight. I don't ever want to see.
This was like in 2014 or something.
Okay, gotcha.
Like they basically because once Nolan left, they had no way of creating like a centralized universe, basically.
Right. Thank Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and so instead we get this kind of splintered stuff where we get Joker and we get whatever Zack Snyder Murderverse.
I mean, if that's what it takes, if like 5 years of utter failures and like stock prices dropping, if that's what it takes to get us to the point where they make the Joker and Fox makes Deadpool and they figure out like, hey, we could trust our audience with this stuff, right? Like if that's what it takes, then I think it was worth it.
Yeah. So Aaron likes our show.
Yay!
So we like you, Aaron. I think we could talk about this like fucking for hours.
We will. We'll get back to the Dark Knight, I promise.
Yeah, so that's my number 31, the Dark Knight.
Cool. All right. Well, then let me put a nice little bow on this week's conversation. Just a neat little bow. My number 31, above Citizen Kane, believe it or not. See, you can't. What's the saying? You can take the trash out of the young man. No, what is it? What there's that saying is like you can take the trash out of the man, but you can't take the man out of the trash, or Or you can take the man out of the
Yeah,
trash. You can't take the trash out of the man. One of those things.
I think there's a lot of ways of, but I see what you're saying.
You get what I'm
You
saying,
can't
right?
basically. It's like you can't take a man away from what he is.
From
by
what
his
he
nature.
is, exactly. Right. You can show me Citizen Kane, and I can analyze it, and I can really respect it and rewatch it and say, wow, that's amazing. But I got to get back to my roots eventually. My number 31 is 1979's The Warriors, directed by Walter Hill.
Hell yeah.
It's just so good, dude. So the Warriors is like it's
Can
an
you dig it?
Can you dig it? I mean, so this is what I was talking about earlier, when you can definitively point to a movie and say, oh, that is 70s as fuck. Like, this is unmistakable. It's like that, and, you know, Scarface and Roller Boogie. You could point at those things and say, like, yeah, no, this is of its time. And that's perfectly fine. You can have a Cuckoo's Nest and you can have a Dog Day Afternoon, and you can put those in any period and they'll work and they'll play, and they're universal kind of human stories. And then you have The Warriors, which is about the fucking culture, right? It's about it's this heightened reality where the gangs rule New York City. And it would there's a line where he's just like, we outnumber the cops 3-1, you know, and it's like, it's this fantasy of like, yeah, like, why don't we, if we all banded together, like, we could fucking demolish the system. We could completely take it over. There's nothing they could do. They could, you know, if there was like a riot or something, we could upheave this entire system. Now, granted, the movie takes place in its own little microcosm, and it's not talking about like the federal government or anything, but they're just saying, basically, there's this one guy, Cyrus, who brings together every single gang in all of New York. And they're saying, we outnumber the cops 3-1 or 5-1 or whatever the figure is. If we stick together, you know, there's nothing we can't do. Can you dig it? Can you dig it? And everybody's like, yeah. And then what happens? Somebody shoots this fucking prophetic Messiah character and ends that notion. And he pins it on the Warriors, which is just one of the outfits. And the Warriors is like, you know, 10 or 11 guys, are not a huge outfit. Some of the other gangs. So this movie does so many cool things. It creates its own universe with all of these gangs, and each one of these gangs has their own art style. They've got their own outfits. They've got their own logos. They're in-universe graffiti. They've got everything. You've got the fucking baseball Furies. You've got the Boppers. You've got like all of these different gangs, and they all look a certain way. And that beginning scene is just, it's massive. There's hundreds of people in that shot. It's like a fucking Cleopatra, but with like gangsters and gang members. It's insane. And there's all these great scenes of like whatever. There's like a narrative. The movie plays out sort of like out of order in certain points, but basically it's a simple premise. Is you've got this guy trying to unite all the families, essentially, right? If we're going to put it in gangster terms, somebody whacks them and pins it on the Warriors, because ultimately what is it about is they're just at war with the Warriors and they wanted to take them out. And what's the easiest way is to put in all of New York against the Warriors. So they do this great job of setting up, we outnumber the cops, even the police force. And then you turn all of that against an outfit of like 15 guys, and you realize the stakes are like just crazy high. Yeah. There's so many gangs. There's orphans, the Lizzies, there's women, there's men, there's fucking homeless people, everybody. There's gangs. Everything is a gang in this movie. It's insane.
Yeah. It kind of sounds like John Wick almost, kind of shit. Like the way they built this world.
It kind of is. Yeah. Right? But it takes place obviously in its own reality. But like, I wasn't alive in the 70s. I can't tell you what the gang situation looked like in New York in the 70s, but obviously it's based on something. And the coolest fucking thing about this movie is that there's like a DJ, basically. So this world with all these gang members have their own radio station that they listen to, and that's its own gang, is the fucking radio station. And there's this one woman who we never see her face, we just see her lips. It's like this close up on this woman's lips, and they're bright red, and she's just talking about like, all right, boppers, today we're talking, you know, we're gonna listen to the Marvin Gaye classic, whatever. And so the entire movie is just licensed music, basically, but it's got its own score and everything. But it's basically, you know, 10 guys or 10, 15 guys are on the run from the rest of New York.
The world, yeah. It's
world.
Literally them versus the world.
Exactly. And it's like, how are they going to get home? So it's more or less a simple premise of just like, they're here, they need to get to Coney Island, everyone's out to get them. And so that's like an inherently kind of a terrifying premise. And it's sort of an adventure movie. But then it's an action movie. Yeah. Every one of the warriors is its own like character. Basically, you've got the guy who's just the degenerate who'll fuck anything, and then you've got the guy who'll fight anything, and then you've got the guy who's just really passionate about graffiti, and graffiti is like everything to him. And it's like, they all have to work together against all of these odds. And there's obviously the great scene at the end where they end up on the beach to fight Luther, the guy, and that guy's in John Wick, David Patrick Kelly. I was struggling to come up with his name last week. And then there's that scene. They finally make it to Coney Island, and he's got the 3 bottles, and he's like, clinking them. He's like, "Warriors, come out to play!" So this movie's just got it. It's creates this own little microcosm that it exists in. It's only an hour and a half, but the production value on this thing is insane. It's like it's an epic. It's a B movie epic.
It is. Yeah. This is another one of those B movies that transcends what it is.
Exactly.
Because it's just like, and again, diving into like the politics and like, okay, so in the 70s, New York was like fucked up.
Was it?
It was,
Cool.
Yeah, that was so basically.
Yeah. That's like when the Bronx was on fire, no?
Yeah, it got bad. It got really bad. So basically what happened is like at the tail end of the 60s, there was this massive uptick in crime in most major cities, and then there's what's it called, the white flight. People just left.
We talked about this with like the French Connection last week, right? Like how New York was just kind of fucked.
New York was fucked, and so New York, it was like it was really bad. And so there was so for instance, there was this thing. I think it was basically a gang. They called themselves Guardian Angels, and they would just be some dudes who'd be like on the subway riding, and if someone fucked with somebody, they'd jump them, beat the shit out of the people.
I think that scene is in this movie. I think.
Yeah. So that was some real life shit.
Yeah.
So this is just the way people viewed how fucked up New York City was at the time. Like New York is just a world of gangs, the way they saw it.
That's crazy.
A number of cops, and the cops are just there, who are another gang, but they're just
the cops are a gang. They're absolutely a fucking gang in this. The way they're presented, it's hilarious.
Yeah. So this is just like people in 1970s New York. And then there's also, the stuff with the music and the Marvin Gaye and that kind of stuff.
It's the culture of it. Like it's just seeping through every like orifice of this movie. Yeah. It's just the style and the culture and the counterculture, I guess, whatever you want to call it. I mean, like this is what the kids are into.
Exactly. And it's almost like, because really, it's almost, you can think of the premise as like everyone left New York other than the gangs. Mm-hmm. And now they're fighting over New York because all that's left.
Yeah,
and that's almost kind of accurate because people just got the fuck out, man. People like we were talking about before. Stanley Kubrick in like this late '60s, he just left. He went to England, never came back. Just got too crazy, and people were like, "Oh, I heard this person got robbed. This person got stabbed. This person saw someone get stabbed." People got scared and they got the fuck out. They got the fuck out of New York. Now the people that stayed, talk about a windfall. Like if you but when everyone was leaving, you bought property or you whatever.
Yeah, there's
New York, dude. New York is New York.
I mean, there's people in San Francisco that are still sitting on shit they bought and their family bought in like the 50s or whatever. Yeah,
it always comes back. It's just like there are some of these San Francisco, New York, LA.
Yeah.
It's never going away. Humans are always going to live there. Until the end of time.
Exactly. That people are just attracted to again, it's that dumb fucking human animal thing of just like we're always going to be attracted to cities. We're always going to be attracted to certain things.
Love that sun. Love that good weather. Love we're next to the beach or we're next to a river or a lake, whatever it is.
Yeah, it's convenient to be able to walk down the street and get anything you want. You could buy a hot dog. You could get sushi. You could get whatever the fuck. Everything. It's all there.
Burrito,
all the cultures. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Anyway, I love this movie. This movie's crazy. Mr. Big's in this movie. A young Mr. Big from Sex and the City.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's a young Mr. Big.
Wait, who the fuck is Mr. Big?
I forget. I don't know his name. I just know him as Mr. Big. I forget the name of the actor.
Was it James Remar?
I think
because he's a I guess you could call him a B movie regular, but he's a venerated actor of these types of things. He's in a lot of Tarantino movies actually.
Oh no, it's not Mr. Big. It's the other guy. I forget the guy's name. He's the other. See this fucking Sex and the City shit. I have no idea.
You know what's funny is last night I was looking up. I wanted to watch Sex and the City because I finished Sopranos and I was just on a really low, and I was just like, what other HBO series can I watch? Yeah. And I was like, I've heard a lot about Sex and the City. Like it might be a little too chick flicky, but I want to give it a try. And then I found out that there's no like Blu-ray restoration of it. Oh, and no. I pieced the fuck out. I was just like, nah, I'm not coming back until they're doing this. I am not watching DVD rips
piece
of this.
Of shit. Yeah.
Nah, get the fuck out of here.
Version. Damn, I forget this guy's name. But he's in Sex and the City. He's like,
is it James Remar? Is that who we're talking about?
It might be. Hold on.
He's the guy who plays Ajax in The Warriors. He's like the most well-known actor in that movie.
Yeah, it's him. Yeah. He's
Dude, he's a venerated, like okay, let's look at this. He has 171 credits.
Oh shit.
Acting credits. Like this guy he's like the guy. He
puts in the work.
He puts in the work. And he's in a shit ton of Tarantino movies. He's in like all of the Walter Hill movies at this time. He's great. He played Brian O'Connor's FBI handler in Too Fast, Too Furious. I mean, nice. I can't not love this shit.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
See, that's a director who knows what he's doing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. With was John Singletary?
Singleton? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Singleton. Yeah. He knew what he was doing. He
knew what he was doing, and especially with the Florida shit, with bringing in Ludacris and all the Cubans and the Eva Mendes and the fucking hotties. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean. Yeah, because that's basically what the franchise is now. It's like more rappers, more big stars, more exotic people, more exotic places.
Yeah, more product placement. How can we more Pimp My Ride? How can we put an Xbox in your car? Yeah, dude, I'm all about it. Yeah. But yeah, there's a lot to love about this
Warriors.
Movie. It's crazy to me that this happened, and I think Walter Hill is a really underrated director. He did a lot of really important shit. In the genre, in particularly in my like genre, a lot of the kind of these B tier guys that I like worship end up through these movies. So I hope to one day be able to make half a movie like Walter Hill, and of course Walter Hill did 48 Hours with Eddie Murphy and Nick Nolte. So he's got some hits.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So, that's our episode for today. Some really good stuff. Good
deluxe edition.
Episode. Yeah. They're getting longer.
Dude, they're getting way fucking longer. They're going to keep getting longer because we're getting into the stuff that like every single one of these is our baby, and we want to really give them the time that they deserve.
I feel like this is illuminating too, because like, I feel the other thing I want to do is see what things we talk about the most. Like have the longest discussions, because I really feel like that says something too.
Yeah.
Well, it probably says something about us. Those are like the things probably more
that we have more something in common to say about maybe. Yeah.
But like that Dark Knight discussion, I feel like that really was illuminating, and we're going to talk about it more.
Yeah. Well, if you add up like probably what's the longest we've spent time on is Christopher Nolan shit.
Yeah.
Just him in general, and the Irishman / Scorsese stuff. I would say that's probably what we've spent the longest on. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was just thinking that like I know that whenever the next one is, like I'm probably gonna have to add Dunkirk. I feel like I have to add Dunkirk. Like just the more I watch that movie, the more it's just like an absolute cinematic masterpiece. But I feel you're right. The Nolan stuff, because Nolan is really like the guy.
Well, he's relevant, right? He's relevant right now because he's doing stuff that is able to impact movies as we know it still. Basically, he did it during our lifetime, and he's has the potential to do it again. So that's why we talk about him and we criticize and we adore and keep going back and forth.
Yeah, absolutely. He's really like the titan of his era.
Yeah,
of our time.
Yeah. And it sucks. Can I just add one 30-second rant about why I wish that Tenet A got the rollout that it deserved and B was better than it ended up being? Because Tenet felt like I'm a do Inception again, and it just wasn't. I mean, really, I think all it really needed was something as banal as the thing he had in Inception with my wife killed herself and now I'm sad and I'm doing the psychopathic idea implanting shit. Like that's all Tenet really needed.
Absolutely.
I cannot. I'm going to watch Tenet again because I just got the 4K Blu-ray of it. And when I go up for Christmas, I'm going to watch it with my friends. But
you're going to like it.
I'm going to watch that. But like the woman with her child shit is just not doing it for me.
It's not enough.
And the end of the world doomsday plot is just, come on.
So when I remember, so the first thing I really heard, the first feedback I heard was they compared Tenet to, they said it was like North by Northwest mixed with Primer, which was like kind of gave me a boner.
I like that, yeah.
But I think the film is not so. What I like so much about North by Northwest is that why I talked about the writer. He was able to take all these big ideas and then center them with actual character. Actual character and plot and things that move. With that, Nolan's like, fuck the plot, fuck everything else. Yeah, here's a chick. Her kid died. Her kid. She's afraid of him dying. Okay, now let me do what I want to do. I'm gonna crash a fucking plane into a building, and it's a real fucking plane, and I'm gonna blow it up.
I'm laughing because it's true.
It's
true. He just says, "Fuck the story, dude." Like, who cares?
It's true. It's so fucking true. And the thing, so I was seeing this thing recently. This thing kind of went viral where he was actually talking about Dunkirk. He's talking about Dunkirk, and this guy interviewed him like, this plot is really intricate, and like, do you think the people are going to be overwhelmed? He literally said, "Fuck it." Said, "Fuck it. If they can't get it, fuck it." And I'm just doing this thing for me. This is how I want to relate to the story.
I like it
because this is how I tell the story of Dunkirk. It's about the fact that if you're a soldier, time is way more elongated than if you're in a plane.
Yeah.
And if you're in a boat, and so I'm going to use that to tell the story. And the rest is just me using IMAX cameras.
Again, it's the same thing. Go back to our. We talked about this in our Interstellar discussion. It was basically just like he finds this thing. It's like what's his entry point? Is just like, oh, time is different for soldiers. Dunkirk, boom, that's cool. Relativity, time flows differently in space. Okay, family, Murph. Yeah. Okay, cool. Inception, like dreams within dreams. Okay, which creates a time element that I really need to tell, that I want to tell the story. I mean, he builds on the shit, so
yeah, absolutely. And
everything is secondary.
Yeah, Tenet is it's just there's not enough of an actual thing. That's why to me Tenet is trying to be North by Northwest, but it fails because we don't really care about
tying it all together.
Yeah, and then I've watched it like quite a few times now at this point, probably like 6 or 7 times. And I think that what he's trying to do is actually really interesting thematically with the film, because I think it really said, because like the film is really about a war between the present and the future. That's what the film's about. And it's really about how the things we're doing are kind of going to fuck up the future. And what if the future was like, fuck you? Well, we're going to fuck you back.
That's
what Tenet's that's what's about. And then there's at the end, there's a thematic kind of, he contemplates that. He contemplates that. The problem is you can't hear them talk about it in the movie.
Yeah.
No one heard it. They just see John David Washington and this Russian guy on the phone.
I haven't watched it yet, but I read in a review of the 4K Blu-ray, because I was reading like about the technical specs and stuff, and I read in the review that like even the subtitles sometimes say indistinct or inaudible over dialogue during certain. I haven't seen it yet, but that's just what I read in the review, and I'm like, if that's the point where the fucking guy who has to sit down and transcribe it and write the subtitles for the Blu-ray, even he doesn't know what they're saying. Come on, dude. What are you doing?
Yeah, because then he does this other trolling where it's like people talking backwards and shit.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
it's well, at least he shows you what they're saying afterwards. But I hate that. I hate that so much. That scene where the guy's talking to him backwards, because I already can't hear shit in this movie, so I have to. I'm going crazy.
And he's speaking in a accent.
And I have to think, am I not hearing this because I can't hear anything anyways? Or is he speaking backwards? And then the payoff is 10 minutes later, we hear what he's saying forwards. I'm like, well, if I knew that, I would have fucking paid attention the first time to what was going on. But I was focusing on trying to figure out if I could hear the fucking dialogue.
So this is the thing that so basically he wants to make you submit. That's actually what he wants to do. He wants literally he wants you to submit to him and just kind of like just let the shit just wash over you. And then he wants you to watch it again and again and again, and then you kind of pick up stuff, and then it becomes easier. But he literally wants you to. That's what he basically said in that interview. He wants you to just like stop thinking about it, submit to him, let the cinema wash over you, and then experience it again and again and again, and then through that, you kind of start to understand. But that's like.
But that's a level of craftsmanship that is like just it's beyond anything anyone else is doing. Nobody else is like fucking beating me into submission at this level with this much money and marketing behind it. Like I haven't seen like, okay, if this was like like a fucking indie movie or something, sure. Like if this was Primer, I understand you could do that. If this was like a Shane Carruth thing, but like. Not when you're trying to sell me action figures. I mean, I don't know. Yeah. Tenet. I feel like Tenet is a step too far to me for him. Yeah, I think.
And he needs to stick. That's why I was saying in the Dark Knight stuff. Like he needs to take a step back.
Yeah.
And like maybe try to do a fucking Superman movie.
I don't know.
Just recenter himself.
I think the response and just the criticisms that we're talking about, because we don't hate Tenet. But I think these kind of discussions are gonna embolden him. I just have a sneaking suspicion that people are gonna say we can't hear your dialogue, and he's like, guess what, motherfuckers? The concept for the next movie is nobody can speak, or they can only speak, or like it's set in a futuristic world where everybody speaks their own language, but the translators don't work, and so the entire movie is in 8 different languages. He's gonna do something like that.
I think the next one is like how sound can transverse time, and so then so you'll be able to hear everything, but then there's a time element to it.
So
he stretches out
the track is just off sync by like 5 minutes.
like you're like at the beginning of the film you'll hear something, but it's like it's elongated,
it just
and then you'll hear that same thing again later, but it's truncated, and then you'll understand it.
God damn it! Yeah,
you'll hear everything. You'll hear everything in the next film, but it's going to have a time element. I feel like
that's
that has
the one.
To be
If there were Vegas odds, I would put money on it. That's happening.
I absolutely think that has to be, because how sound interacts with time. That's like I feel like you just have to say that to him.
Yeah, right.
You just say that to him, and boom, it's
he goes on a 20-hour fucking caffeine binge writing this thing. Yeah,
and he's in the fucking writing room. He's writing the script, and he's writing all the machinations on how time interacts with sound and how that can traverse the whatever.
Yeah.
He's off. The last thing he's thinking about is like, what is the character? He doesn't give a fuck about what the character will come. He'll figure out the whole plot, the whole world. He'll build the world, and then it's like, okay, so I need a woman. I need a kid.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. And then he just shoehorns in the woman, the kid, and all this other shit.
And it's just like, is there a part Michael Caine can play?
Yeah. Or did you just hear his voice or whatever? Like, that's even better. He doesn't have to show up. He doesn't have
to show up.
Oh my God, I love this. I love it. There's many things.
Dude, it's gonna happen. That's such a great concept for him. It's gonna happen for sure. Yeah.
Oh my God. All right, guys. Cool. This has been a fun one.
Yeah, thanks for sticking. Listen, we'll work on the timestamps. We'll get all of those figured out, because these are kind of impenetrable with the timestamps, I feel.
It is, yeah.
So we'll get those up, and by the end of this, we will have a collection of discussions that we can go back to. That'll be fun. So
I just hope at some point, like we make a movie that like 2 people are interested in, or like 5 people or whatever, and then they're like, "Oh shit, did you know that?"
Yeah. Did you know that these guys are fucking insane?
Did you know that there's 35 hours of content of the 2 of them talking about movie? And then there's this poor son of a bitch is literally just watching.
Listen, if that's you in the future, if this is the
God
Christopher
bless
Nolan
you.
premise, God bless you. Yeah.
Or the even better thing is like it's 10 years later and this Nolan movie just got made.
Right.
And they're like, holy fuck, these guys
We discovered
these fucking guys.
this podcast with 3 views from 2020. Predicted. Did Christopher Nolan steal his ideas? I wish.
My God, dude.
That'd be
Yeah,
cool.
I wish. Yeah,
Listen,
yeah.
make Bill and Ted's Home Movie. That's all I gotta say. Make that shit.
Yeah.
Greenlight it
we need
today.
you need to make it.
Yes, please. I'll get Soderbergh on the phone. We'll see if he can produce it. Yeah.
All right, guys. Cool. Thanks a lot. It's been a fun one. Talk to you
Talk
soon.
to you soon.